Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Life Show, Week 6 Review Edition. I'm your host, Ian Hartitz. It is a great day to be great, and it's a great day to break down all the utilization, sheesh moments, and unfortunately, the injury ramifications from an ever-eventful Week 6. So hope you guys won those fantasy matchups. If not, well, it's time to get back in the lab and figure out what we need to do ahead of Week 7. Of course, as always, on this lovely Sunday evening, I'm joined by the one, the only Dwain, the Rock McFarland. What's up, Mr. Dwain?
What is up, Ian? You know what? I'm getting to hang out and do this show with you, so I did not have to go to Six Flags to pick my daughter up. My wife had to go do that. So, hey, we have a Sunday night show coming through, keeping me at the house, and I'm not having to drive. How about that?
Did you get your daughter the Fast Pass?
No, we have gotten it for her before, but no, we did not get her the Fast Pass today.
Hey, kids got to learn sometimes, Dwain. You're being a strong, assertive parent. I'm never going to fault you for that. Yeah, with that, guys, again, we're going through every single Week 6 matchup here, touching on the top performers, key utilization, injury fallout, all that, and much, much more. Appreciate you guys tuning in with us as always. Starting off with Dwain, all the way back on Thursday night, we had the New York Football Giants beat down the Eagles 34-17. Giants entered the game as a 7.5-point dog. Fun to see them win outright over cash with ease at 40.5. So Jackson Dart, man. First two games, we saw the flashes and everything. First couple of drives of those games in particular were fantastic. He really did put together 4 great quarters in this one. Made the easy look easy in an offense without really anyone that is going to overly worry defenses downfield. Obviously with Malik Neighbors and now Darius Slayton sideline as well. But Dwayne, it's the rushing that honestly is maybe going to make this dude a QB1 in fantasy the rest of the way. I put together a chart. I think it was on Thursday before the game where it was like every quarterback's just overall scrambling usage and then also their design run usage. And lo and behold, Jackson Dart was like skewing the entire thing up in the top right-hand corner, Dwayne. So again, we knew this dude was going to be like fantasy friendly. I didn't know he was going to be vying to be like a legit top 3 rusher at the position. QB1 the rest of the way, Dwayne. You've always said is in the Xfinity ceiling, and now we're seeing it come to fruition.
Yeah, we've seen it in the ceiling, and I mean, I plugged him into the rest of season projection model trying to get ahead for this week, and I did the Thursday games last Friday once I had the data, and yeah, Jackson Dart came in at QB 13. So right there at that borderline. He had started off at QB 12. He lost Malik Neighbors. He dropped to QB 16, and then now he's slowly worked his way back up. But over these last 3 games, Ian, since he's been the starter, he leads the NFL in design rushing attempts per game for quarterbacks at 4.7. If you look at his scrambles, 4.3 per game. That is 4th, only behind Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, Justin Fields. So, and we still have another game for Jaden Daniels to go. That's just a 1-game sample for Jaden Daniels. So yeah, Jackson Dart absolutely using those legs and doing just enough as a passer. But the big thing for him is it's not just the yards, like the dude can score the touchdowns. Just a sick move, freezing a defender in space on Thursday night, had the little pump, head fake, and then takes it in. Really, really good play by Jackson Dart.
Just maybe spending a little bit too much time with Cam Scatterbo. I know everyone probably saw that, just random play where Dart, it's like the opposite of the Mahomes-Allen stuff I complain about, Dwayne, when they're going out of bounds and, they kind of just, I'm going out. No, I'm coming back in. Dart's literally launching himself head first at a defender saying, no, like I'm not going out, man. I'm going right through your heart and soul. So very, very fun player. Schedule's not going to get super easy. This was a matchup that featured the Eagles without Jalen Carter amongst some other starters. So don't want to completely freak out. But then again, it's not like Jackson Dart's surrounded by these awesome players anyway with all the injuries the Giants are dealing with. So awesome stuff. And again, just can't say enough about how much he made the easy look easy, which is huge when you can do the things Dart can do off script. Of course, though, Dwayne, the real star of the show was Mr. Scatterbo, as I mentioned. 98 yards on the ground, another 12 receiving, not 1, not 2, but 3 touchdowns. Who is a tush push where you can just give the rock to Cam Scatterbo and watch him try to run through each and every person in his pass. So really great game, Dwayne. It sure didn't seem like Tyron Tracy had much of an impact, if any, on his overall usage.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know, like, first game back for Tyrone Tracy, is this what we're going to see? So, like, I don't want to freak out. But, yeah, I mean, it was 73% of the snaps to Cam Scatterbo. It was basically the same role that Scatterbo had been in. And Tyrone Tracy really just stepped into the role that we had seen for Devin Singletary, a little bit more than what we'd seen for Singletary. But 61% of the rushing attempts for Scatterbo, 52% route participation. So, Tyrone Tracy, 30% of the routes. But it was Scatterbo with all the short yardage work, got most of the work inside the 5-yard line, or all the work inside the 5-yard line. And then he also got most of the long down and distance. The Giants did not use any of the 2-minute offense in this game. So yeah, I think in my updated rest of season projections, I put Scatterbo at like 57%. He was at 61% of the rushing attempts in this game. So But if we get another game like this, then I would feel even more comfortable just saying, okay, like he's completely taken the backfield over. Let's just give him, 63% of the rushing attempts the rest of the way.
Not sure we're going to expect the Giants to score 34 each and every week, but man, you go back to the Saints game when they were in a trailing script, and all of a sudden, Scotty was catching 6 passes in that game. So upside RB2 at worst. If you drafted him, kudos to you. You're going to continue to start him in the passing game. Again, Darius Slayton out with a hamstring injury. Don't need to go too long here. Unfortunately, next week the Giants are going to be in Mile High, so it's going to be tough to be too excited about anyone involved. But hey, Wan'Dale Robinson scored a touchdown, 6 catches, 84 yards. He's going to continue to be in that wide receiver 3 conversation, particularly in full PPR. Behind him, though, Dwayne, what did we see other than, little Jordan Humphrey, a.k.a. Big Jordan Humphrey, going out there and doing his thing a little bit?
To your point, I don't think there's really anything actionable here just because Slayton was hurt and he was out. Now, Slayton hasn't been very good, and little Jordan Humphrey actually did play pretty well in this game. So who knows? Maybe they decide they want to mix things up a little bit more. No, nothing else to add. Wan'Dale Robinson in the 2 games since we've had Malik Neighbors gone has a 22% target share, averaging 14.3 fantasy points per game. So I look at him more as like a borderline wide receiver 3, low end wide receiver 3. I think that's the big takeaway here.
Over with the Eagles, we're able to relatively move the ball okay, but just 1 for 9 on third down throughout the evening. Ended up not being enough. Also got America to really turn against them with not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 straight tush pushes. It did end up in a touchdown for Jalen Hurts, but at what cost, Dwayne, considering, the way the media has turned on him at this point. But yeah, man, just kind of seemed like same old, same old. Just unfortunately, the same old Eagles this year have not quite been seen on the same page. I mean, there's Devonta Smith streaking wide open down the field for what should have been a 90-yard touchdown, but Hurts missed them. Honestly, a pretty good bounce back from A.J. Brown. Overall, 6 catches for 80 yards, no touchdowns, because Dallas Goedert has apparently made it his life's goal to soak up every single receiving touchdown on this team. He now has 5 receiving scores on the season. The rest of the team has just 3 combined. So again, Dwayne, I think we kind of know what we're getting from the Eagles, but unfortunately, the run game efficiency isn't there, and that's causing Saquon to just not put up the bonkers numbers we're used to. And the passing game, while we see flashes, because yes, it is full of really good players, just not nearly as consistent as we would like to see, to be able to rely on these guys as the top tier talents that they are in real life.
Yeah, I think the big takeaway here, though, is that the Eagles have just been the complete opposite over the last 3 games of what they were the first 3 games. So the last 3 games, Ian, they lead the NFL with a 9% drop back rate over expected. Now, obviously, the games from today have not been uploaded in the utilization report. So the Eagles have week 6 in here. Everybody else just has week 4 and 5. But the main point being is they have shown a different gear. And you kind of alluded to this last week on this show. I just didn't realize how big it was until I actually got to look at the data. But over the first 3 games, they ranked 31st, right? -7%. So now when you add it all up, like, you probably get the truth is somewhere in the middle. They're sitting at a 1% drop back rate over expected. But I think the big takeaway there is like, man, if they live in that range, like, we can probably be okay. We're going to get some good games from A.J. Brown. We're going to get some good games from Devonta Smith. We're going to get some good games from Saquon Barkley. It's kind of hard for everyone to eat, especially to your point. If it's either a tush push or a underhanded flip or whatever to Dallas Goedert. Those are the 2 plays inside the 5-yard line now. But I think that overall, like, and the Eagles are 4-2, obviously. So they may decide they want to go back to running more because they were winning when they were running. Of course, also they've been in some trailing game scripts, but overall, I take this as a positive. Like, there's a little bit of a silver lining here for the passing game, just by the fact that they're more balanced now.
Obviously would help a lot if they can get some of these banged up offensive linemen improved. But yeah, man, has not been pretty on the ground. Just 3.4 yards per carry for Saquon. That's below even some of the worst that we saw on some of those horrible Giants teams, particularly later in his tenure there. So he is averaging, 22 yards receiving per game, which is 5 yards up on last year, but still not exactly Saquon heights. So Dwayne, for Saquon, I mean, it's obviously sucked for anyone that used the early pick on him. We'd like to hope that, again, improved and just less injured offensive line is going to help matters, but just unfortunately someone that we kind of need to, I don't want to say go down with the ship with, because I'd like to think he's going to have bigger games, but just kind of sucks right now, and we just got to continue to roll with it.
Yeah, and I think as the offensive line gets healthy, look, the Eagles are too good, man, and Saquon's too good of a player. I still believe that Saquon Barkley is going to turn it around. Like, yes, it's been a rough start to the season, but like, he's honestly still one of the players that I'm not near as worried about him as I am some other players that have really had a slow start, just because I do think the Eagles are still a really good team. So I think if you can get the Barkley owner to be willing to move him, like Ian said, not easy, because he's still Saquon Barkley. They still spent a very early pick on him. But if you can get someone that has Saquon Barkley on their team to move him, I would still be targeting him in trades.
And he has still shown his trademark elusiveness, kind of short area, making dudes miss, particularly when they gotten him in the open field in the passing game. We just haven't had a ton of opportunities to have those gaping holes for him to actually go ahead and get that, one hitter quitter 60-yard touchdown ability. So Eagles are going to be at the Vikings next week. That is a defense that is fantastic against the pass, have been a little bit more of a liability against the run, though. So maybe Saquon and company can get on track there. Now, Dwayne, we move on over across the sea to England because the NFL will not stop shoving these 9:30 a.m. kickoffs down our throat. But we went ahead and rewarded the England crowd with one of the ugliest football games of the year, with the Broncos taking down the Jets 13-11. The Jets did cover at +7 entering, under, of course, cash of 43.5. So Bo Nix, I'm in the crosshairs of Broncos Nation because I brought up that Bo Nix is not facing slander, and I use a cool little Homelander meme because of Justin Fields' performance. I was told, Dwayne, that Bo Nix actually was not at fault here. It was a play calling and everyone else's problems. And okay, fine. I'll admit I had to start sit stream this morning. I didn't get to watch every single drop back Bo Nix had, but when we're facing literally the worst pass defense in the league in a variety of metrics here, can we average 6 yards per attempt against them, Dwayne? Because that's just been the whole thing with the Broncos this year. Courtland Sutton does his thing, but for the life of me, nothing else in this passing game has been easy. I just expected more out of Bo Nix and Sean Payton as partnership. He's not terrible or anything like that. Honestly, I've been surprised that he still had a couple boom fantasy performances, but he had the nice game against the Bengals. He had the nice comeback against the Eagles. I really thought we were gelling and driving and starting to build up to more. Simply didn't have it this morning.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add. I mean, we talked about Nix a little bit last week. I still think like has some of the underlying traits we want. He does still run. He is down as a passer, though, to your point. I mean, he's averaged over 7 yards per attempt in one game this year. And that was week 4 against the freaking Bengals, who are just absolutely atrocious as a secondary. So, I mean, threw for 242 last week, threw for 174. So, yeah, man, he's thrown for 206 or less in 4 games. I mean, that's pretty bad. So, I mean, I can't really defend him. I feel like he still has some traits that could eventually get going if the Sean Payton offense can get going. But yeah, man, I can't really defend him. Like he's not playing well. So I don't know what else to say.
Few chunk gains to Courtland Sutton and Troy Franklin, 13 and 24 yards respectively, were called back on holds. Again, not trying to say Nix was a dumpster fire or anything, but I had relatively high expectations for this dude. Certainly has not met those. And really, again, just a struggle bus day for the passing attack. So they do get the Giants next week. Courtland Sutton's going to continue to go in lineups of all shapes and sizes. Really is tough to be overly confident about anyone else in this passing game. And Dwayne, the run game, yes, J.K. Dobbins, not the best day at the office, only converted 14 rushes into 40 yards. Didn't find his way into the end zone. Not going to completely write him off or anything like that. He's still going to be very firmly in that low end RB2 conversation. But man, in a game where Tyler Bidet was a healthy scratch, it sure seemed like we could maybe finally get the RJ Harvey show. But Dwayne, when you can get Jaleel McLaughlin involved after sitting him on the bench for the first 5 weeks of the year, you just got to do it sometimes.
Yeah, gave him just enough to be a nuisance, 11% of the snaps and 5% of the rushing attempts. And Harvey had 28% of the snaps and 9% of the rushing attempts. He did have a 15% target share. I don't want to say that saved his day. He scored 6.5 fantasy points, which was more than Dobbins. I think the biggest takeaway here is like, this is just continues to be a committee. And until like Sean Payton proves for multiple weeks in a row that it's not going to be, it just is what it is. I will say with Dobbins, same role that he's been in, he just didn't come through in fantasy. So if you've liked J.K. Dobbins up to this point, you've liked his role, you've liked the fantasy points you've been getting, those are probably still going to keep coming. He just had a bad day with 4 fantasy points today. It just didn't go his way, but the role wasn't any different.
Again, home against the Giants next week. Certainly going to be it was a good spot today, obviously, but it'll be another good spot there for Bo Nix, J.K. Dobbins, and the Broncos. Over with the Jets, Dwayne, 1.4 yards per play. They were 2 for 15 on third downs. When you do net passing yards, which includes sack totals with it, Justin Fields threw for -10 passing yards. Dwayne, I looked at the worst games this year in terms of EPA per dropback. Okay, minimum 10 passing attempts. The worst game was week 3, Jake Browning against the Vikings. The second worst game was week 2, Justin Fields against the Bills. And the third worst game was week 6, Justin Fields against the Broncos. Despite all this, Aaron Glenn, when asked about who is going to be his QB1, if Fields will still be the QB1, responded, "Come on, man. What kind of question is that?" So Justin Fields, there were 60-minute stretches. We've seen 2 of them this year where he looks like he's physically incapable of completing a forward pass. I'd like to think things are going to be a little better next week against the Panthers, Dwayne. That's my only defense.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, it's the Justin Fields experience. It continues on. We've been living it for many years now. So, I mean, I don't, and we've talked about it multiple times. Fortunately, so far this year, we've got to talk about the highs more than the lows. To your point, there has been that one other game that was a low, but he at least still came through with some fantasy points in that game. I think that was the game that he actually did get injured, if I remember correctly, Ian, against the Bills, and he left early. But if
Concussed.
you look at him, like, I mean, 29 and here's the games that he's played in full: 29.5 fantasy points, 27.1, 25.9, and he gave you 4.9 today. Like, I mean, you're just going to have to take the good with the bad if you've got Justin Fields. Obviously, the Broncos are a very, very good defense. And to your point, yeah, you're getting to play the Panthers next week. So I would put my chip on him scoring somewhere between 18 and 22 next week versus what we saw today, even though we know he can absolutely struggle. And dude, he targeted the heck out of Garrett Wilson, but Surtain just did a great job of keeping those things from being completions.
Again, Patrick Surtain, one of the best in the game. We knew this was going to be a horrendous spot. Would have been a lot cooler if Fields was able to add, some level of production on the ground. Yes, did not get that today. Honestly, I think the problem was they were too close in the game, Dwayne. We weren't getting, the soft shell prevent defenses for Justin to start completing stuff. It was actually competitive in the fourth quarter, and unfortunately, we could not get Captain Garbage Time to go ahead and do his thing. So, again, Garrett Wilson dealing with a knee injury after this one, so we're going to have to keep our eye on that. Again, just so many injuries, unfortunately. But yeah, I can say confidently, Dwayne, this is not going to be an offense we were looking to necessarily someone else to step up, at least in that wide receiver room. Could be good news for Mason Taylor, who I know dudded in a meaningful way. I would like to think that the Jets are going to throw for more than 45 real passing yards more weeks than not moving forward. I'm assuming, Dwayne, we still did see the same every down role for Mason Taylor.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson tried to put on his injury cape after the game with those comments, but we really know that it was the Patrick Surtain cape, and that was just what was blanketing him all day. 38% catch rate on his targets. He had 50% of the targets, dude, and he had a 38% catch rate. Just give Pat Surtain a hat tip. Hopefully, nothing's wrong with Wilson. I'm partially joking. Maybe his knee really is hurt, but I'm just saying I might say that if some dude just shut me down like that. So Mason Taylor was out there 80%, 86% of the routes, but he only had a 6% target share today. So that was a little disappointing. And then as well as, both of us talked about, Ian, hey man, you got Garrett Wilson. He's going to have Surtain on him. Like, let's get the ball to Mason Taylor and Breece Hall. No, we didn't get the ball to either one of them in the passing game. Breece Hall did actually play 85% of the 2-minute offense today. So he got some of that work. He had a 45% route participation, but he was also not very active in the pass game. I will say this though, like with Breece Hall, this is the second game that we've had without Braylon Allen, and he's had a much larger role both times, Ian, on the ground. Didn't come only 5.9 fantasy points today, but overall, I feel like this is a positive for Hall. He had 79% of the rushing attempts today, and he was over 70% last week as well.
I wonder if we could potentially see Breece Hall dangle some trade talks. I'm not going to spend the next hour speculating about it, but man, 22 touches out there today on the ground, only 59 yards, but mentioned, going this week, he really has looked good more times than not. Obviously the Broncos just load the box, and this one would be
0% target share, Ian. How do you do that against the Broncos?
Like, can we get a couple screens? That was the whole thing. Like when like Malik, I know they played obviously different positions, but like when Malik Neighbors was getting shut out, for 3 quarters, it's like, you can't design a few plays. I know I'm not in Justin Fields' helmet or his headspace. I can't control where the ball's going with the play call, but you'd think you can get the guy the ball in open space a few times. So otherwise, guys, I think that about wraps up. Again, Jets versus the Panthers next week, the league's single worst pass rush. Hopefully better days ahead for this entire offense, particularly the passing attack. Moving on to 1 p.m. station, we had the Steelers beat down the Browns 23-9. I think the broadcast said this is their 22nd straight win at home against the Browns. Oh my goodness. Steelers covered at 6.5 and the under cashed here at 38. Aaron Rodgers, man, for this to happen against a Browns defense that I know I had a ton of respect for going in and still do. I mean, really was impressive. 235, 2 touchdowns through the air on 21 of 30 passing. Could have had an even bigger day. I think they ended up scoring or moving the ball on the drive, so it's not like, they had to punt after, but he had DK Metcalf downfield for what could have been another 50-yard touchdown. Unfortunately, that was a bad, underthrow on that one. But overall, Dwain still got 95 yards and a beautiful touchdown to Metcalf. He's had back-to-back good games. And just now, man, since 2019, which, okay, that was the year where Roethlisberger played 2 games, and then he had the elbow injury, which basically sapped all of his arm strength, even once he did come back. Since 2019, this Steelers passing game is overall first in yards per attempt, EPA per dropback, explosive pass play rate, passer rating, completion rate. Yes, it's only been 6 weeks. Also, yes, Rodgers can still sling it, Dwayne. And DK Metcalf is a big, scary man who can run freakishly fast. I think they found themselves a good combo here.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens because we never know for sure. Like, these hot streaks can come and go, right? Like we see it all the time because then defenses evolve. We talk about how you work in a 3 or 4 week stretch, and then that's whatever all the defenses you're now playing are going to be watching all the film, and all they see is DK Metcalf, DK Metcalf. Like, can DK Metcalf make the adjustments once the defenses make their adjustments? That's the big question. Now, I would like to think. Yeah, I would like to think coming into a game when you're facing DK Metcalf and Calvin Austin is out, and like the Steelers, the rest of their weapons being what they are, is like I would just think the Browns probably already are trying to just take away DK Metcalf, and he still had this good game. But we see these sort of things where they go up and down. So I do think it's a really good question, though. It's a good point by you. He scored 21.6 fantasy points per game over the last 2 weeks with a 28% target share, 13.2 average depth of target. Today was 16.8, more downfield stuff. He had 151 air yards today on a 31% target share. So looking at Metcalf, I am going to give him the slide upgrade probably tomorrow in the utilization report. Like, I'm not going to go crazy. You know me. I put him through I move him up like one step at a time and everybody gets mad. But by the time I get to the point where I could be too far, they usually settle in. And it's like, we know where they really are. So I try not to be too crazy about it because this could also just be a scenario where like in 2 weeks, he's like back to what we had early in the year. But I kind of lean to where you are. I feel like you got 2 veteran players that are probably starting to get on the same page, and just, man, there's no one else here. Like Jonnu Smith doesn't even get to play enough, dude. Darnell Washington's taken over as the tight end 1 in this offense. I mean, he's basically an extra offensive lineman. Like he plays like almost all the snaps, but he runs like 61% of the routes. So we got like 6 offensive linemen on the field, pretty much for all the plays for the Steelers. So besides the running backs, man, I don't know where else the balls are going to go besides Metcalf.
Again, has been great chemistry to see Rodgers and Metcalf, linking up on some of these, dimes down the sideline of that nature. And as we saw again in London, DK always a threat to take those slants or crossers to the house. It was funny though, watching the Browns and they've done this throughout. I get it. I'm not, defensive wizard, but Denzel Ward, like usually historically doesn't shadow number ones. And watching Tyson Campbell, just fresh off, from getting traded from Jacksonville, he was getting torched by Metcalf. And then we had Greg Newsome getting burnt by Jackson Smith and the Jigba. Just the rare trade, Dwayne, where I think both teams were immediately regretting what they did there. So again, good stuff from Metcalf, going to be in that upside wide receiver 2 conversation. You talked about the tight ends going on. Darnell Washington, like the first play of the game, just completely uncovered on a play action. The Browns probably thought he was an offensive lineman. I'd be pretty confused if I was out there as well. Got going for like 40 yards. Did we end up seeing more two tight end sets than usual, Dwayne, with Calvin Austin sideline?
I think we saw like 4 tight end sets today. Hayward even caught a touchdown in this one.
That's right.
But yeah, Jonnu and Freiermuth, like this is just a problem for them. If Darnell Washington, now these last 2 game scripts where Darnell Washington's played so much, they have been in leading game scripts. So that could be something to keep an eye on. But man, we're rotating 4 players at this position. And I'm sure you guys have already moved on, but some of you are even in sicko leagues, tight end premium stuff. Like, I get it. You probably got to keep Jonnu stashed, or you feel like you do. But man, if I had a tough call, Ian, I don't care. I'm cutting him. Like I don't want to mess with this. It's not an offense that's going to throw the ball all the time. They don't run a lot of plays, and now you're going to rotate 4 guys. It's pretty gross.
I am good on that as well. Basically, any pass catcher not named DK Metcalf does not need to be on a fantasy roster. And yes, we do want to keep some running backs there, but also, yes, Dwayne, I don't think we can be too excited about it. We did not see Jaylen Warren have that same every down role that he was carrying before his knee injury.
No, Caleb Johnson coming off the bye got the rookie bump. Turned this thing into a 3-way committee. It looks like Denver now. 52% of the snaps to Warren, 35% to Gainwell playing the RJ Harvey role, and Caleb Johnson playing that Tyler Beatty role, but instead getting carries instead of targets. 19% of the snaps. He had 25% of the rushing attempts. So Jaylen Warren today, 46% of the rushing attempts, almost 50% of the routes, right at 48%. He had a 7% target share, which was a letdown. That's really been the big area that's really insulated him all season, has just been his role in the pass game, which I think that part of his game will probably end up being fine. But man, if they're reintroducing Caleb into the offense, we weren't crazy about this backfield the first 2 weeks because we thought it was a 3-headed monster. It got down to 2. We're like, oh, okay, we can live with that. It looks like it might be back to a 3-way split. And Caleb Johnson was involved before. It wasn't just an end of the game thing. where it was Caleb Johnson. He was getting some of this work in the first half too.
Needs to start doing something with it. Just 15 yards on the 6 carries today. To be fair, though, I mean, the Steelers haven't really been able to run the ball all season long. And then when they're facing Myles Garrett and company, didn't have too much more success. I was honestly shocked with the success they did have out there. So Warren, Gainwell going out there, running hard, doing their thing. They both had some good games this year. But again, only so much you can do when you're not getting the full feature workload. I would be very surprised when I get my week 7 ranked scare tomorrow if Warren is going to be cracking the top 25, probably not even the top 28. So moving on to the Browns, 3.3 yards per play. Dwain, again, like me and producer Mick were talking kind of before you got on here, like just the idea that Kevin Stefanski and this entire organization were like, okay, we're going to have Dylan Gabriel go to London and start off against the Vikings. Then we're not going to have a bye week. We're going to send him to Pittsburgh, who's coming off a bye week for his second start. We were talking about this in like week 4 saying, okay, no, they're probably going to wait until after these 2 games. Why would they hang him out to dry like that? Well, they did. And now he's averaging NFL low 4.8 yards per attempt. I mean, he threw 52 passes out there, man. We had 221 yards. I think probably half of those pass attempts end up in hospital balls. Good God, man. Could you not try to get your entire passing game killed? So, yeah, very, very unimpressed. Gabriel's got this rough combination of not being physically imposing. He's also not overly athletic. And to top it all off, Dwain doesn't have a ton of arm strength. So, yeah, I don't know what defenses worry about. Next week, they're facing off against the Dolphins. So, I would like to think that he can maybe take advantage of that secondary. But I don't know, man. Like, you have to pay me to put anyone in this lineup that's not Quinshon Judkins or maybe a tight end.
Yeah, I'm with you. I thought the way you described Gabriel was perfect. Maybe some might think a little mean, but accurate. So I can't really argue with it. I will say Joe Flacco wasn't that much better than this. So I mean, True. I guess that's the one thing you could look at. But yeah, it's Judkins or bust in this offense. And I would say if we do have a situation, so David Njoku left this game with an injury, we'll have to keep an eye on that. See what might happen with it. But Harold Fannin Jr. today scored 15.1 fantasy points. He had a 76% route participation, so a season high, and a 20% target share due to the extra playing time with Njoku out. So that would be the big one to watch here for the Browns. I would imagine if we don't have Njoku, even then, Ian, like as much as we like Fannin, and he's done everything well that they've asked him to do, whether it's playing H-back, fullback, guy they move all over the formation, playing normal tight end, lining up in the slot, like he's done it all and done well at it, but it's still the Browns. And it's like, so like, it's still going to be hard to get that excited about Fannin as much as we like him as a player. Probably more, I don't know, like high end tight end too, unless you got a bunch of teams on by. Like it's still maybe low end tight end one. That's probably as high as you can go though.
And that's why we couldn't rank Judkins as a top 5 running back, even though he looks every bit like the real life equivalent of that, man. It's just this Browns offense. And we saw what happens today when they fall behind and all of a sudden Jerome Ford and Dylan Sampson are taking away his snaps on clear-cut passing downs. And also they're not getting anywhere close to the end zone. And all of a sudden he can't try to ram his way into the end zone from the goal line. So again, Judy had 2 drops out there, week high 105 unrealized air yards. I can confidently say not all those were on Dylan Gabriel, but man, some of them were. We also had Isaiah Bond running out there, getting headshotted by Dylan Gabriel on a potential short touchdown. So it's a mess. I'm not going to, again, put everything on Gabriel. To Dwayne's point, I mean, this offense wasn't exactly humming with Joe Flacco. And also, I would say it hasn't exactly been humming for the last, 25 years, Dwayne, pretty much regardless of what quarterback has been under center. So we'll see what happens again next week against the Dolphins. But yeah, big things would just be to keep an eye on that Njoku injury. Harold Fannin will be a recommended waiver ad, even though to Dwayne's point, can't get too excited, despite him, again, really making the most out of his opportunities. I've been surprised at just how NFL ready that dude is, Dwayne. He does lead all tight ends in tackles avoided this season. Moving right along, we had the Indianapolis Colts take down the Jacoby Brissett-led Cardinals 31-27. Kudos to the Cardinals for covering as 9.5-point dogs over cashier with ease at 46.5. So it was competitive down the stretch, but Daniel Jones and company did hold on. 2 touchdowns through the air, another one on the ground for Daniel Jones. Did have one bad, INT, but whatever. So do a lot of good quarterbacks. Again, very firmly still sitting in that borderline QB1 conversation. And Jonathan Taylor, another big game as well. $123 on the ground and a touchdown. Now pacing Dwayne for 1,708 rushing yards and 20 rushing scores on the year. North of 2K, I do believe, if you include the receiving stuff. So we know we're getting there. Any thoughts on this passing game as a whole, other than Tyler Warren just being freaking the man and on pace himself to gain over 1,000 yards this year?
No, I kind of think the beauty of this offense is we know what it is at this point, and we pretty much know what to expect every week. And there is going to be a pass catcher that's going to get squeezed. Today, it happened to be Michael Pittman. He only gave you 4 fantasy points, but his role was pretty much the same. I don't know if he might have left the game. I was looking in perplexity. I couldn't find anything. If he left the game for a little bit with an injury potentially, or if it was just something later in the game where they maybe gave him some reps off, because he's had a 79% route participation. They did have Alec Pierce back, who actually led the team with an 88% route share, but I'm not going to read too much into it right now. Josh Downs actually was the number 1 wide receiver for the team today with a 23% target share behind the true number 1. Guys, Tyler Warren likes the true number 1. He gave you 18.3 fantasy points, but Downs came through with 16.2 fantasy points today, Ian, 23% target share. Unfortunately, I cannot report to you guys that his route participation went up. In fact, it did not. It went down. It was at 61%. So Josh Downs, ballers are going to ball, Ian, but still stuck in that part-time role.
Great catch in the back of the end zone for Downs, took a hard hit, held on to the football. And yeah, you mentioned
really
Warren, dude.
Today.
Dude, I feel like Tyler Warren, every single game, like after the first drive, I look down, he's already scored 12 PPR points.
Can we keep it going?
One of these weeks, man, he's just going to have like one of those. He had 2 of them at Penn State where he caught like 17 passes and just went completely nuclear again some point. But yeah, Tyler Warren, if you wanted to say he is the tight end 1 the rest of the season, really could make a strong argument for that. So Colts going to be at the Chargers next week. Not the same sort of layup this one was, but at this point, again, feeling pretty amazing about Jonathan Taylor and Tyler Warren. Also not too shabby about Daniel Jones, Michael Pittman, and yeah, to a slightly lesser extent, Josh Downs. We'll note that A.D. Mitchell was in fact a healthy scratch here with Alec Pierce back. Sad day for us. Dozens of truthers still out there, Dwain. Over with the Cardinals, again, just a nice performance from Jacoby Brissett. And if we are ready to slander Kyler Murray over it, I think I might be, Dwain. 320 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Did most of it without Marvin Harrison Jr., man, who went out there and caught his first 2 targets, looked good, actually made a nice contested catch over the middle. Unfortunately, man, just was not taken, just had to make the catch, all right? So wasn't in control and just have one of those rough heads, bangs back and hits the turf. So looked bad from the beginning. Man, stayed down. Good job on the NFL for pulling him off, getting him in the concussion protocol. Hopefully Marv gets back soon. So after that, we saw Zay Jones do his thing, 79 yards. Our one true short king, Greg Dortch, found the end zone. I'm always going to bring that up. But yeah, man, Trey McBride did well. Just overall, it was good to see Jacoby Brissett get something out of this passing game because Lord knows Kyler hasn't been.
Yeah, nothing really actionable here other than the fact that, despite the fact that you lose Marvin Harrison Jr., he comes out and throws for 320 yards and 2 touchdowns and average 7.3 yards per attempt. Jacoby Brissett gave you 20.7 fantasy points today. He was just better than Kyler in every single way. And I have a feeling, man, that had Harrison not gone down, we were about to see a big game out of Marv today. Yeah. I think we probably get 100 yards and a touchdown. You can't say for sure, but he was already, that was his second catch of the game on I think that was the first, it was either the first or the second drive when that happened. I can't remember exactly. So yeah, Zay Jones was the guy that stepped in and played for Marv. Obviously had some chemistry going with Brissett. So you'd have to be in an absolute sicko league to consider Zay Jones. Ian's probably picking him up right now in his 32 team league. He scored 12.9 fantasy points, 85% route participation, 21% target share. Zay Jones is one of these guys, Ian, that we've seen over the years. He even had one year where he was kind of good in Buffalo. Then he moves over to go play with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and he just roasted the Cowboys that one game. He's a guy that's like an 8. He can be like this 18 to 20% target share guy in the right offense, which is what he was. So I would say like a boom bust wide receiver 5, not this crazy thing, but if you're in a deep league and you really need help, I actually prefer Zay Jones over Michael Wilson, who also looked like he was dealing with a wrist injury or something at the end of the game.
I think it was a finger. He did return, actually caught a pass.
Yeah, he played.
Got stopped at the 1 yard line, unfortunately, on one of them. But yeah, very, very banged up room. But again, is going to continue to flow through Trey McBride regardless. He did catch 8 of his 11 targets out there, 72 yards and a touchdown. Love seeing, because Dwain, every Sunday night I go through, I check who got tackled at the 1 yard line and did not score a touchdown on the same drive. I saw Trey McBride and I was like, oh man, here it is, almost scoring again. No, they went right back to him on a play action pass, and Trey McBride caught that that touchdown. So love seeing that. Although Michael Wilson, they did not go back to him. They went to Bam Knight, Dwain, who did account for the backfield's only touchdown and seemingly was the lead running back out there. Now, it didn't seem to start that way because I know like he didn't even have a carry until it was that goal line plunge. So we had the pregame report from Adam Schefter saying it was going to be a new starting quarterback and starting running back. So again, maybe in the first quarter it didn't look like that, but it did seem by the end of the way, Dwain, Bam Knight was the lead running back in Arizona.
Yeah, and it was still close from a snap standpoint. 49% of the snaps to Bam Knight, 46% to Michael Carter. We did have Amari DiMercato injured in this game. So it really came down to these two guys. If you look at the rushing attempts, it was Bam Knight at 48%, but then 39% to Carter, 45% route participation. So a little bit more of the passing down work to Carter versus 28% for Bam Knight. But Bam Knight had 4 of 4 snaps inside the 5. So he took all of those today. And 4 of 4 2-minute offense snaps went to Carter. So essentially we have the Seahawks offense. We have the Seahawks backfield split with backs that are not as good as those two guys. Also on an offense is not as good. This is just, this is gross. These are two players I really don't want anywhere near my fantasy lineup if I can help it. Some of you are going to be playing in leagues where you're going to have to use them, but I would say low end RB3 material at best for these two players.
If Amari DiMercato is out of the picture, I think we probably prefer Carter just for the chances of getting 4 to 6 targets. But again, it's going to be close. And I think to Dwayne's larger point here, they're not going to be ranked inside our top 24 or be recommended starts ahead of next week's matchup against the Packers. So only other notes I have was, good God, Indy, get your pregames together. Anthony Richardson fractured his orbital bone when he had an issue with a rubber leg band. Man, that's nightmare fuel right there. And also Charvarius Ward got collided, knocked out with Drew Ogletree, suffered a concussion in that. So chill out. Nice win, Colts. You guys are 5-1, but yeah, man, get your warm-ups a little bit on a better pace. Moving right along, we had the Los Angeles Chargers take down the Miami Dolphins 29-27. Kudos to Miami for covering us 3.5-point dogs, the overcast share of 45.5. So this was a game that Miami almost won, guys. Again, I just wouldn't have been surprised if they rolled over as early as, week 2 after their season opening display. They have remained competitive though, because the Chargers were up 13 early in the 4th. Dolphins clawed back in it and threw a touchdown to Darren Waller to put them ahead with under a minute left. And then Ladd McConkey did Ladd McConkey things, broke a tackle or two and gained 42 yards to set up Dicker, the kicker, for the game winner. So nice performance from Justin Herbert. It was amazing, Dwayne, watching this one, that he only ended up taking 1 sack. I felt like he was under pressure. Every other drop back out there, wound up over 264 and 2 touchdowns, one of which did go to Ladd McConkey again. So yes, Quentin Johnson was out with a hamstring injury. And yes, I think that helps a lot, Dwayne, when we have a 3-headed wide receiver room and we can condense that down to 2.
Yeah, and I mean, Keenan Allen still got left out today. He only gave you 6.7 fantasy points in a PPR league. And we also didn't see his role expand with Quentin Johnston out. He stayed in the same role, 74% of the routes, 24% targets per route run. So, I mean, he was still like out there when he was out there, he was getting targeted, but not enough plays. It was Trey Harris that actually stepped into Quentin Johnston's role. He had an 85% route participation, 13% target share. So 6.7 fantasy points for Trey Harris. I think the big story here, like McConkey, you already mentioned it. Like, we know McConkey's a good player. I had already been watching the film and stuff on him. I'm like, man, this is eventually going to happen. Like, he's just too good. He's open all the damn time. Like, nothing's changed about McConkey other than the room being more crowded. As they get healthier, get the offensive line back, we'll feel better about these things. But I think the big story right now for me, man, is like Aronde Gadsden, the second, 11.8 fantasy points today, 82% route participation, 21% target share, 25% targets per route run. And that's with Will Disley returning to the lineup, who had really been the tight end 1 earlier in the year. Route participation rates for Aronde Gadsden over the last 4 games, Ian, 28% to 50%, up to 64%, and today at 82%. So I know these games have been a little bit back and forth, but it wasn't like this was just a massive trailing game script or something today where they're like, oh, we just got to, well, it's the Chargers. They say they have to pass every play anyway. They threw 38 passes today and ran the ball 25 times. But it kind of feels like Gadsden is like, I don't know that he'll be at 80% every week, but it does feel like they've just kind of shifted to him, man. And they're making him their top tight end, and it's looking better every week.
Dude, and he's making the most out of his opportunities. Also, will note he lost a fumble out there, Dwayne. It didn't matter. They just went right back to him. So kudos to them for, again, really recognizing him as one of their top players. Again, caught 7 of those 8 targets for 68 yards. So look, I will say, Dwayne, If we find out David Njoku is going to be out, I would prefer Harold Fannin, but I think Gaston could be in that same conversation. And hell, we see a couple more weeks like this. Maybe he's going to bypass him.
Yeah. And I think like we would say the ceiling, like the pure ceiling is probably higher for Gadsden because he gets to play with Justin Herbert. Yeah. It's a crowded room, but it's still a better offense. And we know that we're going to like it more and more, hopefully, as the year goes on, as the offensive line gets healthier. So I'm with you. If I'm picking this week, I am going with Fannin if I found out that David Njoku was out. But I do agree with you. Like in 2 or 3 weeks, I could see this being like, knock on wood, we don't want these things to happen. But what if Keenan Allen had missed 3 or 4 games? I'm not so sure Rondé Gadsden wouldn't step into part of his role. Like he's a very fluid athlete. He's not your typical tight end.
No, really did do good things with Mr. Kyle McCord at Syracuse. He certainly is the, strong pass catcher version of tight ends. Of course, though, Dwain, the big story here in Los Angeles was what to make of this backfield without, Marion Hampton. Obviously, Najee Harris Najee Harris is done for the season. Hampton is not done for the season. That said, we did get a report from Mike Garofalo before the game that he is expected to be sidelined for more than the 4-game minimum on IR. So it sounds like Hampton's not going to be back, Dwain, sooner rather than later. And because of that, maybe we should start getting excited about one Kamani Vidal. I do need your Venmo because you were right, and I was a big freaking stupid idiot, Dwain. I'll owe you $5 because Kamani Vidal did a lot better than Hassan Haskins today.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's tough because like we hear all the reports and to be honest, we didn't know. My only thought process around players like this is like, I just want to bet on the guy that I think is the more talented player because there are so many unknowns that we can't control. Why not just pick the one thing that we actually do know, which is that Vidal can catch passes out of the backfield and looks like he's faster than Hassan Haskins. And that was enough for me. But look, it could have easily gone the other way. It didn't though. 22.8 fantasy points today for Kamani Vidal. Essentially playing, he honestly nearly played Omarion Hampton's role. Not quite to that extent, but 67% of the snaps, 72% of the rushing attempts, 56% route participation, had 11% target share, 18% targets per route run. And Haskins was his backup. This was not a committee. This was a backup player. Like backup running backs get, 20 to 30% of the snaps. Haskins got 31% today. So will it stick this way? We don't know. We just went through this with Michael Carter. How many running backs have we gone through this with where we get the 1 week a day and we're doing all we can. We're reacting, but we do also try to tell you guys, hey, it's 1 week and we can't tell you for sure that means what it's going to look like next week. I will say, Kamani Vidal looked really good. Now it was the Dolphins. So you have to I guess you got to put an asterisk by that, Ian, just because the Dolphins are not a very good defense. But Kamani Vidal, he looked really good today.
And Naeem Hines, which honestly was one of the main reasons why he only he had 1 total snap in the backfield, otherwise just a special teams guy. So definitely Kamani Vidal show. Again, had the pregame report about Haskins allegedly being more of the lead back. Obviously that did not come to fruition. I don't know, Dwain. I'm not going to sit here and necessarily criticize that though, because it did seem like that Haskins was involved a little bit early and Kamani just, was balling out. So they ran with him more. I mean, that's the thing, man. I don't want to be slamming.
It can be hot hand.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe it was the plan. I don't want to be yelling at a reporter for reporting something that they were told. Yeah. And then it changed. You know what that's going to do, man? It's going to have reporters never telling us anything ever again. So again, just would take it easy.
No, they can't because they need clicks. So they have to say something.
That is true. But just chill out on the social media webs, everyone. I know it sucks to lose your fantasy matchup, but that would just be my 2 cents there. Otherwise, last thing would just be sharing this quote from Jim Harbaugh about the, penultimate Herbert to McConkey connection. Quote, that play will be burning in my mind until they throw dirt over top me. Always great hearing from Jim. So Chargers will be facing the Colts next week. Again, that should be actually a very fun matchup, 5-1 versus 4-2. Over to the Miami Dolphins. They only had the football for a little over 25 minutes in this one, Dwain. But that said, Tua Tagovailoa, 205 yards and touchdown, 3 interceptions, though. I know one of them went in and out of Jalen Waddle's hands, but just a situation, man, where, again, I kind of ran the numbers and talked about it in my matchups column last week. But when Tua is on time throwing the football in under 2 or under 2.5 seconds, like he still is putting up top 10 efficiency numbers. It's when they can just make him pause a beat, take away that first or second read, and then just force him to leave the pocket at all. That really is when things get rough in a hurry. So Tua did tell reporters after the game that Dolphins players have been late and or skipping players only meetings in recent weeks, Dwain. Not exactly the stuff that I love hearing from the quarterback out of a team that I'm hopeful that can keep scoring points. We will see what happens there. But I would just say, overall, Devon Achane doing his freaking thing. He's still a freaking incredible athlete, fast, speedster, 49-yard touchdown over right end. I mean, just, dude, 150 yards, 2 scores, like Devon Achane, top 5 running back. I love that we have him on so many teams, Dwayne.
Yeah, Devon Achane, you guys don't hear me say anything else about him. He scored 31 fantasy points today. High five to everyone that has him on their team. Jalen Waddle, we've got 2 games now, Ian, without Tyreek Hill. He's averaging 19.4 fantasy points per game with a 27% target share. He's got 264 freaking air yards in those 2 games. So if you've got Jalen Waddle on your team, he is definitely locked into that mid-range wide receiver 2 territory. Maybe he pushes more towards that low end wide receiver 1. Need to see some consistency from Tua. Need to see him getting the ball out on time. All those things Ian mentioned that make the Miami Dolphins offense go. Darren Waller, we are now into week 3 of the experiment with him. We did see a high in route participation, Ian, at 81%. Nice. 9.2 fantasy points. You got lucky. He was got uncovered on a drag route that took like about 2 years to develop. He was the man standing alone at the other corner of the end zone, and Tua found him for a touchdown to give you the 9.2, 10% target share today. And 2 games without Tyreek Hill, he's averaging 14 fantasy points with a 13% target share. Nate Washington, 50% routes. Still staying around the line of scrimmage. Pretty gross. Nick Westbrook, Akini just running ghost routes. There's nothing going on there.
Not trying to tell Derwin James and the Chargers secondary how to do their jobs, Dwayne, but I don't know. You see the one guy over 6 foot running across the end zone. Maybe you decide to track him a little bit. It's just wide open. But again, we've complimented Darren Waller a ton for honestly those first 2 games with him looking like a big athletic freak out there, making some great catches, routing up Sauce Gardner, all that stuff. 4 touchdowns in 3 games. Also did have a 15-yard catch nullified on a hold in this one. So Darren Waller, again, I think he was our consensus tight end 7 this last week. I would imagine he's going to be right in that same conversation next week against the Browns. Moving on, we had the Patriots take down the Saints 25-19. The Patriots covered as 3.5-point road favorites. Nice to see them not let down in this spot following that emotional win over the Bills. The under did cash though at 46. So Drake May, Dwayne, I was looking at the MVP odds before the show. He wasn't in that edition, but I wouldn't be surprised, man, if he starts climbing his way up there. I mean, good God, pick any passing efficiency metric you want. He is going to be in the top 5 or 6, worst case EPA. But yeah, 8.5 yards per attempt this year, 261 and 3 touchdowns through the air today on 18 of 26 passing. And that did not include a 61-yard touchdown to Demario Douglas that got nullified on one of the weakest. It was an OPI on Stephon Diggs on the other side of the field, bro. Like Diggs ran a 4-yard out route and they said he like pushed off his guy and they threw it to Demario Douglas on the other side of the field. That's what drew it. And then later, May had an incredible 51-yard rainbow to Diggs. That again just didn't even seem like a real push off from Diggs. This game, the officiating going on throughout really did just seem like a big joke. The Kayshon Boutte touchdown took like 5 minutes for them to figure out, and then they had the 2-point conversion. Just a lot of madness going on here. But Drake May, Dwayne, everyone's favorite late round quarterback this offseason. Yeah, it turns out he was the best late round quarterback. So kudos to every single fantasy analyst out there.
Yeah. I mean, not every fantasy analyst loved him, though. I had one specifically tell me I was just trying to hype up somebody for no reason. But anyway, 254 passing yards. I wasn't you. No.
Okay. I thought you were throwing at him.
No. I wasn't. No, it wasn't you. It wasn't you. Okay. Someone else. I won't name names. But yeah, 254 passing yards per game. That ranks 6th in the NFL right now, Ian. 8.5 yards per attempt. So this is for guys that played a minimum of 3 games. That actually ranks 4th in the NFL right now. I mean, he's throwing 1.67 passing touchdowns per game. 5.6% of his passes go for a touchdown pass. Drake May is playing absolutely freaking phenomenal, Ian, with, a very suspect supporting cast. Like, there's no other way to put it. Like, all the rest of these guys we're going to talk about, we like Stephon Diggs. Kayshon Boutte had a nice game today. But let's be honest. Like these are guys that many quarterbacks would struggle to really prop up, Ian. So I think that just makes what Drake May is doing even that much more special.
Patriots running backs on design rush plays, Dwayne, dead last Dead last in
Yeah,
EPA per
they're
design rush. Not great this year. So again, Ramondre Stevenson, yeah, he only had 18 yards on 13 carries, but Trayvon Henderson, he averaged 3 yards per carry. He hasn't been doing anything all year long, man. This dude is not breaking off the big plays that we were hoping for. And now we're even seeing memes, deservedly so, of him on third down pass pro, just literally standing there like his controller got unplugged. So I don't know, man. I'd like to think bigger players are going to come, but Stevenson was the lead back, Dwayne. So I guess we can get kind of excited about him maybe getting up into that RB2 conversation. I don't know, man. Next week it is going to be Patriots in Nashville facing the Titans. So they're probably going to be 6 at least point favorites or so for that one. You'd like to think
I don't
Ramondre
care.
could fall into the end zone, but Dwayne doesn't care.
I'm not ranking either one of these running backs as a running back too. Like, I mean, I don't care if like Girl Scout sauntering to the door, like it. Yeah, there's no way you can't make me choose one of these guys to be a running back too. I think we need to see one clearly declare themselves. To your point, Ian, it was Ramondre Stevenson today with a 71% snap share to 29% for Hendo. So it wasn't like this was a split. This was Ramondre Stevenson's backfield. Here's the problem. You're playing the Saints and you scored 1.8 PPR points with that big fat 71% snap share. I mean, what the hell, man? Like that's terrible. That's absolutely terrible. So I will say we've seen Ramondre Stevenson as a good football player in the past.
Yeah.
So don't want to say that it can't get going, but man, this is definitely a prove it situation for me before I'm going to be willing to consider really moving these guys up. But to your point, if you had to pick between the two of them right now, say you did have both of them in a theoretical situation on your roster and you're having to choose who you were starting, it would probably have to be Ramondre Stevenson, even though Hendo outscored him with a big fat 4.6 PPR points today. So yeah, man, it's just Trevion Henderson, dude, I guess you suck. That's what the coaches are saying. They're saying right now in practice, you suck.
Oh man, yeah, that Vrabel quote just about James Cook, it flashes just in my brain every single night as I'm trying to go to sleep, Dwayne. But again, unfortunate there. Ramondre Stevenson going to continue to be the recommended start. If you guys do have mean things you would like to say to Dwayne and I in the comments, feel free. Just if you want to mind hitting the like as well, we would appreciate that. Over with the passing game, Kayshon Boutte, 93 yards, caught 2 touchdowns, continuing some, makes his plays, downfield, particularly as just that X field stretcher. But just a reminder, guys, this game was awesome. So was week 1, but in the 4 games in between, we're talking about a guy who averaged 25 receiving yards per game and only had 1 score. I was hopeful, Dwayne, that again, Diggs really was going to be the guy ready to break out and just start being this more consistent wide receiver too. And not saying he's not, because again, if we have a ref who just decides to chill out and let the freaking guys play some football out there, we'd be looking at, Stephon Diggs with, again, 79 yards, not nearly as worried about the performance, but just an unfortunate dud in a spot where we're hopeful to see another boom.
Yeah, I mean, he had 71% of the routes today, which was actually more than last week, but only a 13% target share. So he had 5.8 PPR points today. But no, like I'm still not, he still has looked good. I mean, this doesn't erase how good he looked in the 2 previous games. When we went back, and I don't know how much of it you got to watch, but I did watch it this Friday, Ian. And I was like, okay, like this is not just like some made up target share crap. Like Stephon Diggs actually looks really good right now at football. So I think his routes continue to expand. He's playing with the guy we just talked about with Drake May. So I still want to be someone that is invested in Stephon, not Trayvon Diggs. I do not want to be invested in Trayvon Diggs. Unfortunately, the Dallas Cowboys are. But yeah, I want to be invested in Stephon Diggs. Not gonna worry about this one too much. I will say we still want the routes to get higher. Like the 71% like does make it more narrow. Like he has to have a really high targets per route run to pull off like a wide receiver 2 performance. If he's going to be like, you guys hear us talk about Josh Downs every week and the role he's in. You hear us talk about Jaden Reed to open the season before he got hurt. Right now, Stephon Diggs, his route participation's in the same area as those guys. Right. So we do need to see that number come up, or we will be forced to probably look at him as more of a wide receiver 3 because it can jump up and bite you. And that happened today.
Last note, another scoreless affair for Hunter Henry. We're not going to rank him tight end 20 all of a sudden, but I just think it's a good reminder that he's much more in that Zach Ertz, Travis Kelce, tight end one, lower end, borderline group, not someone who deserves the benefit of the doubt over those guys during each and every week. But he's had some good games before. And again, as long as Drake May keeps cooking, we obviously want to be in that business with his every down tight end. Over with the Saints, Spencer Rattler, 227 on 20 of 26 passing. Again, really kept a minute throughout the end. Obviously not the world's best quarterback, but he is proven capable of being a professional starting quarterback, which is pretty cool. Through a beautiful 53-yard pearl down the sideline to Chris Olave, I believe on the first drive of this game, caught the Patriots in an ill-timed corner blitz and made them pay for it, so that was fun. Even got Olave up to 98 yards. But the problem, Dwain, is whether it's Chris Olave or Shaheed on a better day, or God forbid Alvin Kamara or Kendra Miller break a big one, whenever they get inside the 5-yard line, we really need to make sure that 35-year-old geriatric Taysom Hill gets the football as he did from 1 yard out after Alvin Kamara got tackled at the 1. So good news is that Kamara isn't going anywhere. I guess that's good news. Report from Rapshi is he is not expecting to be traded. He wants to be a Saint for life, but it's just unfortunate, Dwain. Like Taysom Hill, he had one rush attempt. You said it last week. He's not getting used as a receiver. I mean, this is the thinnest usage we've ever had for Taysom. So it's not like we can at least, throw up in our mouths and play him at tight end. He's really tough to get behind, and it just lowers the touchdown ceiling for everyone else, which, by the way, wasn't exactly high to begin with.
Yeah, he's a real pain in the ass. Taysom Hill is. Like he did have some route participation today, 13%. So like last week, that was at 0%. He was not targeted. I wouldn't rule out Taysom Hill's role growing, like as he gets healthier, but like right now, there's not much you can do with this. The only thing I would say is like, Chris Olave, this is why it's like always important to remember like a player's like archetype, right? And their career. And everybody was so worried that, oh my God, everything is just spamming underneath. And Chris, you just have to remember now, to your point, it was the corner blitz. You catch them in the right play, but Olave is still running a deep route there. Right. Yeah. And he's a player that has shown over the years, like he can cook defenders deep, and Spencer Rattler's looking a little bit better every week, really, Ian. Like he averaged 8.7 yards per attempt today. So that's the second week in a row where we've had a nice YPA from Spencer Rattler. So it might 2 of the last 3 weeks. Last week might not have been that great. But anyway, so yeah, Chris Olave, Shaheed, Juwan Johnson, offense is all really status quo. Like Juwan's still playing his same role as far as the routes. But again, we talked about this last week. Kamara's getting the targets because they're giving some of those rushing. I believe this. I haven't had anyone tell me this. This is what the data looks like to me. They're giving away part of Kamara's carries to Kendre Miller. They did it again today. So Kamara was under a 50% rush share for the third week in a row. So they gave him a 19% target share. And that is coming from Juwan Johnson. That is coming directly from Juwan Johnson's back pocket, because Olave and Shaheed are really kind of doing the same thing. Like they're in their same roles, and Juwan's getting nothing now because they're trying to give Kamara the looks in the pass game, probably to keep him happy, even though he only scored 12.6 PPR points today. So Kamara more of that low-end running back too, which we already talked about last week.
Juwan, unfortunately, just 2 catches for 15 yards, and he lost a fumble. So if you guys aren't even playing in full PPR, it might have given you a big, ugly negative. So he was already tumbling down the ranks, guys, was a low-end tight end too. And believe me, after this performance, not exactly going to be zooming up. So I think that about does it for the Saints. Next week, they're going to be at Soldier Field facing the Bears. So hopefully a matchup that, again, we can see more booms and busts for. Moving along, we had the Panthers beat the Dallas Cowboys 30-27, which is, as a sad longtime Cowboy fan, just so depressing to say out loud. Kudos to the Panthers for winning outright as 3-point dogs, the over cash with ease, as it does in nearly every Cowboys game at a lowly 47. So Bryce Young, $199, 3 touchdowns through the air, 1 interception. That honestly wasn't really even his fault. Hit the hands of Tedero McMillan, but that's okay because he did catch 2 of those touchdowns. One of them was honestly, I thought it was just a blown coverage, which is usually, let's face it, Dwain, the case, on half the pass attempts against the Cowboys defense. But I'm actually going to give T-Mac the credit here. He had a nice dig, turned it up, scored a touchdown. Even on a second touchdown, Bryce did do a good job evading the free rusher. And then again, found Tedero McMillan once again. So good stuff there. Rico Dowdle, that touchdown pass was a little bit more of a, scramble drill situation. But yeah, man, again, it was a good game from Bryce Young. Tedero McMillan, they took what the defense gave him, which was constant wide open receivers. I don't think anyone walked into the season and was like, without Micah Parsons, the Cowboys defense is going to be good. But I don't know, man. You have, I believe, how could it not be? You have the highest paid cornerback duo in the league, yet you can't stop Xavier Leggett. I know he didn't have a big game out here, but they're grabbing the dude every other play. Like, it's just such a joke, Dwain. So yeah, Cowboys defense, horrendous. Are you changing your mind about the Panthers offense after this? Because I'm really not.
No. I mean, they played the Cowboys. That's all that happened. Now we've been high on T-Mac and we've kept him as a buy. We
Yeah.
talked about him in the utilization report last Tuesday, and we talked about like the potential for like the touchdown stuff to really turn around, and that did today. It's not like T-Mac came through with like 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, but he caught the 2 touchdowns, and we'll take it because that's something he hasn't been getting, and he gave you 17.9 PPR points today. The only other note I would have here on the receivers would be potentially we get Jalen Coker back next week. There was a chance we would get him this week. He did fully practice all last week. Don't know that that'll be worth much in this particular offense with how Bryce Young is playing, but like, I know some of you guys playing really deep leagues, so just if you're looking for someone, Coker is a name that will probably be on a lot of waiver wires.
I went to my local bank branch last Friday, Dwain, with my lovely wife, and the banker there that was meeting us actually knew me on Twitter, and so he was like, "Oh, it's great to see a fellow cokehead in here." And Julia was just like, "What did he just say?" So that one took a little bit to figure out and explain. But yes, Jalen Coker would love to see you back on the field very, very soon. Otherwise, man, complete star of the show, Rico Dowdle. What a revenge game for the ages, man. Buck 83 on the ground on 30 carries. His long run was 15, people. Like, that is crazy. That is, I don't want to say death by 1,000 paper cuts. It's like death by 1,000 knife stabs, though. I mean, like, he literally just one play after another, man. It was like 7-8 yard gashes throughout the entire game. So running hard, and just, I looked up the numbers before. So Bill Krosky Merritt still to play on Monday Night Football. He's the only guy right now averaging more yards per carry and more yards after contact per carry than Rico Dowdle. So not just, again, making the most out of his volume, mentioned the receiving touchdown as well, just looking freaking awesome out there, man, looking like a bulldozer, and now has back-to-back games with 200 plus yards from scrimmage. So Chuba Hubbard, again, they haven't talked about IR and the calf injury and this and that, like, we'll see, but man, Dwain, after last week, I was like, well, okay, I can see this becoming more of a 60-40, 55-45. But I didn't think Chuba was going to lose his job. I don't know, man. This dude's going for over 200 yards a game. Who say he's not going to put Chuba on the bench?
Yeah, I mean, I think at least when Chuba first comes back, I don't see how it's not like more of a 50-50 split.
At least.
Yeah. I mean, again, hot streaks happen, guys. And the matchup was fantastic for Dowdle today. We see things like this. We can't say we see things like this all the time because this is like a crazy 2-game sample. I mean, and he's averaging 33.2 fantasy points per game over the last 2 games, which isn't even as crazy as like when you start talking about the stats, right? And over 200 yards and all that kind of stuff. But we know how this stuff works. But to Ian's point, I think there's definitely like a crack in the armor now for Chuba Hubbard. He's got the contract. He's the guy they decided to pay last year, during the season. So I know Chuba Hubbard's not going away, but man, like, I don't know how you get Rico Dowdle off the field as long as he remains this hot would be the thing. So funny, man, how these things can work, just because I remember all the banter this offseason, and I started drafting Dowdle later in the year just to like cover my bases over in best ball, Ian. But I remember early on, I was kind of like, I don't know, like, why do I want Rico Dowdle? I don't like the Panthers offense. I don't know that I really think he's that good. Maybe Trevor Etienne will get involved. Look at this 2-game stretch. I'm glad I covered my bases later with some Rico Dowdle stuff. Not that I have a lot of it. But it just goes to show you, and we've talked about this so many times, man, when these players get the volume on players that people would have told you before this, this season, oh my God, Rico Dowdle, he's not an explosive player. He's not a guy that's going to change your fantasy league. He's changing fantasy leagues right now in this 2-game stretch. Like, if you got Rico Dowdle, you're winning games.
And look, it's a situation, Dwayne, where I'd love to be like, oh, yeah, I saw it. Because I did draft a lot of Rico Dowdle. I was like, all right, this is a cheap, likely direct handcuff, and I wasn't worried about the day 3 competition. I also just described Jalen Wright, who has not found the field yet this year. And guess what? That day 3 competition snatched his job away. So again, in this case, it worked out great for Rico. And we can talk about why I was a big, stupid idiot for Jalen Wright another day. But again, point is, and Dwayne, I thought you did a great job explaining it in, one of your preseason articles. Like, as much as we want to have these, everything fits in this nice, neat box, in reality, every time we think we even know an archetype or situation with these players, we can always find exceptions to the rule. But hey, shout out Rico Dowdle again. Exceptional performance. You guys don't need us to tell you that. As long as Chuba is sidelined, he's going to be a rock solid at this point. Yeah, RB1 in fantasy football land next week at the Jets. Jets. Get your popcorn ready for that one. Over on the other side of the ball, the Dallas Cowboys now second in yards per game, Dwain, 32nd in yards per game allowed. So next week they are going to be taking on the Washington Commanders. I would guess the Cowboys are going to score a lot of points and probably give up a lot as well. When you look at every single team's like points scored and then points against, so just how many points total are being scored on average, the Cowboys are the only team over 60. The Texans are at 33, Dwain. We're seeing almost twice as many total points scored in Cowboys games than we are seeing with the Houston Texans, which is, again, just wild. So Dak Prescott, 3 touchdowns through the air. He found George Pickens, Hunter Luepke, and Jake Ferguson again, who now cannot stop scoring touchdowns after ending that hellaciously long dry spell. But yeah, man, really the star of the day was Mr. George Pickens. $168 through the air. He hurdled a man. He tried to hurdle another man, which was hilarious. And then he scored a touchdown and then hit the TO sleeping on the football. So love seeing that. And man, now after 6 games, his pace, 91 catches, 1,488 yards, 17 touchdowns. Look, I can see that slowing down with CeeDee Lamb back. But Dwain, I think we're looking at an offense where it's literally the Bengals in the past. When T. Higgins and Jamar Chase were healthy, you're playing them with Joe Burrow, and that is what we have in Dallas right now.
Yeah, I think the only difference is you do have a tight end that has actually been really good this year. The Bengals haven't had that as the third option. So I could still see games where somebody gets squeezed, but I think overall at the end of the year, you're still going to be happy with having all of these Cowboys. And I think the description of the Bengals is perfect, from last year and what we saw there. Prescott's absolutely playing out of his mind over the last 3 to 4 games. If you've got Javonte Williams, you love it. It only gave you 8.4 fantasy points today, but guys, he had 85% of the snaps. Just, it happens. Didn't work out right for Javonte Williams today. Every other week this year, you've been pretty happy with Javonte. But you mentioned George Pickens, 32% target share today, Ian, 120 of the air yards. And the big thing that I'm noticing, and I think this is what could be really cool about the offense once you get CeeDee Lamb back, is with Lamb out, Pickens has had to learn these other positions, and they're now moving him around. He's not just stuck in the one spot. So it doesn't always just have to be CeeDee Lamb that's on the move. They can just do some different interesting things with Pickens as well. And dude, Pickens looks great after the catch right now. I mean, he is just he and CeeDee Lamb are different. They're both great after the catch. They're different though. Like Pickens is he's just mean. He's just a mean after the catch player, man. Did you see that one at the sideline after he hurdles a dude and he gets the next dude? And I swear he was trying to knock the guy out with that, it wasn't even a stiff arm. It was almost like a slap. It was disrespectful to the DB, and he didn't quite land it fully, but and he's just kind of standing there, just staring at the DBs after every play. Do you want some? I don't think you want any of this. And so, yeah, Pickens playing with a complete attitude. But the big thing I'm seeing is just, 21% from the slot today. We saw him in motion a lot today. They're just doing different things that he's never got to do in his career. And look what's happening for this player. And it just shows you sometimes what happens with these players that we see the flashes and we know that talent is there. And we wonder, man, what if he got to play in a role that was a little bit more like CeeDee Lamb? What if he got to play in a role that was more like a Puka Nacua or a Cooper Kupp? Well, you got to see some of that today, and you absolutely loved it with George Pickens.
And again, this is a defense that maybe as we keep on going through the year, we'll find out they were a little bit overrated, in terms of their performance against opposing wide receivers, but they've generally been doing a good job. I know Diggs had a nice game against them, and, they've been had once or twice now, but man, these aren't your usual Panthers where you're just it was the Panthers. I'm telling you, JC Horn and guys, they have had good stats against wide receivers, even coming to this week. Also, shout out to that run defense, man. This was a group that we've really been able to target for years now, but they have shut down Javonte Williams, and even last week, Devon Achane on the ground, at least, in back-to-back weeks. So good stuff there for the 3-3 Panthers, man, who are finding ways to win football games. Shout out to Eric Eager and company over there. So yeah, Cowboys otherwise feeling good. I will note Miles Sanders is out for the season now, guys, with an ankle and knee injuries. So very, very much the Javonte Williams show. But hey, Jaden Blue, certainly someone who hasn't been kept on many rosters. So he would be a good, potential deeper league handcuff stash there. So I do think CeeDee Lamb and also Kavontae Turpin could be back as early as next week. So that would hurt, the Ryan Flournoy experience. But again, not going to be a situation where we are running by any stretch to move George Pickens.
They do just need to let Flournoy play ahead of Jalen Tolbert. I don't
100%.
I mean, today we saw Jalen Tolbert with a 97% route participation, and he gave you his typical 3% target share. It's come on, let's just move on.
We'll always have that really cool sideline catch against the Packers. Thank you for your service.
Great throw by Dak off of the back foot. Yeah, that was massive. Yes.
Moving right along, the Seahawks took down the Jaguars 20-12. The Seahawks covered as a 1.5 point fave. The under did cash at 47.5. So just a pretty ugly game, man. The Seahawks were 1 for 12 on third down. The Jaguars are only 4 for 16. Jags did convert their fourth down conversions, to be fair. But yeah, man, otherwise, the real only consistency here was the only consistency in our lives for the better part of the last 6 weeks, Dwayne. And that is Sam Darnold and Jackson Smith and Jigba putting up numbers, baby. 8 catches for 162 yards and a touchdown on 13 targets from Mr. Sam Darnold, a beautiful 61-yard score where he actually hit 21.1 miles per hour on the play, Dwayne, the 13th fastest ball carrier time of the season. So again, JSN, I saw you tweeting it, just absolute alpha behavior out here. And again, if Puka Nacua is going to be out, unfortunately, we'll have to talk about that injury in a little bit. Yeah, JSN, I guess he's fantasy's overall wide receiver 1. What a time to be alive.
Yeah, these target shares by week are insane. Guys, I'll give you the target share and then the fantasy points in PPR. Week 1, 59% target share with 19.4 fantasy points. Week 2, 33% with 18.3. Week 3, 38% with 20.6. Week 4, oh man, a 21%er. Like Jalen Tolbert would probably give a limb to get that. 13 fantasy points. Week 5, 27% target share with 27.2 fantasy points. And then this week, Ian, 54%. So he's been at 33% or higher in 4 out of 6 games. And then giving you the 30 fantasy points today. And to your point, dude, he only played from the slot 6% today. He did everything outside. So he and Sam Darnold look like they played together for 3 years, man. They look great.
I just wish they were throwing more. And I don't want to be, that meme cracks me up. I don't want to be the air raid boy who's afraid of establishing the run and all that. I understand these coaches are going out there and winning football games. And that doesn't mean dropping back to pass, throw 70 times. But just Darnold's been one of the best quarterbacks in the league this year. Just straight up in real life, that has been the case by whatever metric or eye test that you want to look at, man. The dude is absolutely balling. And just, man, I just feel like it's a waste every single time we're giving the ball to Zach Charbonnet. And even Kenneth Walker, as much as I do think he's a very talented running back, it's not like he's averaging 6 yards per carry, ripping off all these big runs this year. So Walker's been fine. I wish he was getting more run than Charbonnet, but unfortunately, Dwayne, it really is JSN and everyone else. Cooper Kupp caught a touchdown. We've talked about, Torrey Horton maybe doing his thing. AJ Barner saved the day with, a nice little deep shot for 60 yards there at the end. Can't exactly rely on him though. I mean, it really is JSN and everyone else, because as much as Kenneth Walker might be the better option and everything, guess what? Once they get inside the 10-yard line, it is the full Charbonnet show. And now when they have been on the 5-yard line this year, Walker has 1 carry, Charbonnet has 7, Dwayne. I don't think it's going anywhere.
No, it's not. It's super annoying. And you look at the totals today, from utilization perspective, obviously both of them sucked in fantasy. Actually, they tied each other with 4.7 PPR points.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, put them together and you still don't like it. 61% snaps to Charbonnet and only 33% to Kenneth Walker today. 55% of the attempts to Charbs, 46% to Kenneth Walker, 52% routes, 28% to Kenneth Walker. So it's just, not ideal. And you mentioned the stuff inside the 5 for the season. I'm with you. It's another one of these scenarios until they show us they're going to change this for multiple games. We can't just sit here and keep hoping. It just kind of is what it is. You don't really want either one of these guys in your lineup if you can help it. The one quick thing I would say on Darnold, I agree. I wish they would throw it a little bit more, but he is now thrown for 240 plus yards in 4 out of 6 games. Not many quarterbacks in the league have done that. He's averaging 257 yards per game right now passing. And that's ahead of some of the names Drake May that we absolutely love. 9.6 yards per attempt. I know you already know all that. Efficiency is really good. You just like to see a few extra pass attempts per game, but he's also thrown multiple touchdowns every game since week 2, except in week 4. He threw 1 that week. Obviously he had the big game with 4 last week, but threw 2 touchdowns this week. So Sam Darnold, man, playing really well. He's in that high-end QB2 mix. You do need a game, where they're forced to throw it a little bit though.
Unfortunately, don't think that's going to be next Monday night against the Houston Texans. Obviously, very good defense there. Just talked about how they kind of end up turning all these games into Big Ten-esque rock fights as it is. So I just wish we could see a little bit more of that rushing from Darnold. We know he has it in him. I mean, I remember hilariously back, in that Panthers run he had, like the dude was like first in the NFL in rushing touchdowns after the first 4 weeks, but really just hasn't needed to do it in the offense. But yeah, man, God forbid we do get another team that's ready to play, just shootout football with the Seahawks like we saw with the Buccaneers last week, man. That really can unleash Darnold and company to an even higher level. Unfortunately, though, yeah, Jaguars were not ready to do that today. Trevor Lawrence did end up, picking up 258 yards and 2 touchdowns through the air, but in typical T-Law fashion, Dwain, he'll go out there and make some great throws and everything, but man, 7 sacks and just too much inconsistency in between. As it stands right now, and again, we can talk about all the drops and everything and some of the pressure and this or that, 6.3 yards per attempt for Trevor Lawrence. That is his lowest in a year since his Urban Meyer rookie season. So at least Brian Thomas did catch 8 of his 10 targets for 90 yards and a touchdown. Would have been a lot cooler if Travis Hunter didn't pull freaking Kadarius Toney, Dwain, and line up offsides. Otherwise, BTJ would have had a pretty sweet, underthrown, but ended up kind of catching the deflection, 54-yard touchdown down the sideline. But maybe that's the reality when you're spending half your time on defense versus offense. So BTJ is alive and well, which is good to see. But just, I was hoping we could feel better about this overall passing game after 6 weeks, Dwain. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, very fair. But I mean, 23 fantasy points today from BTJ that was really Travis Hunter lining up wrong play away from being 34. 34 fantasy points is what you would have gotten today from BTJ if Travis Hunter knew how to align and wasn't trying to, sabotage his friend. The only other note I would add here, like Trevor Lawrence still came through, with 19.2 fantasy points. So if you did start him, he was in the sicko column this week. We got 2 right. We got 2 wrong. Trevor Lawrence was one that, will pass for being right, given some of the other quarterback play that we saw today. But the big thing that I was hoping to see more of, Ian, was what we saw last week when he was scrambling more, and that kind of all went away again. We had 3 attempts for 9 yards today. So not really anything to write home about there. The only other note I would have on the Jaguars, period, the backfield was the same this week. ETN didn't score a lot of points, but the role was the same. Is that Travis Hunter was really sent back to the purgatory hell of playing the role that he played earlier this year. He had a 3.6 average depth of target today. He had 7 targets, Ian, and he had 25 air yards. Right after he shows you what he can do on Monday night when you let him go down the field. I know, and it is funny, like how nuts everybody went to finally see that. But, Thor had even talked to, you and I about it. He'll hit us over, we have a text thread with me and Ian and Thor. And, Thor gets super excited about Travis Hunter and his downfield ability. And I can't argue, like when we see him get his chances, it looks really good. Nope, not going to do that. We are not doing that. We are going to put him right back in this little underneath gimmick role. And that's where they had him again today. So not good.
And in his defense, he even makes the most out of the gimmick roles. Like he's got a 40% missed tackle rate this year. That's the highest mark among any wide receiver. I mean, again, just putting the nerd stats away for a second. You guys watch it. He makes a dude or two miss every single time he gets the football. Like I don't doubt that Travis Hunter, I know he's a very good receiver, but just can't get on
you would think in a day where he had 88% routes, like that would be the main thing we're leading with and we'd be excited. But it's like this, I don't know. Sorry, go ahead. Keep on going. Go off, Ian.
Jags got a week 8 bye, maybe after that. But man, Dwain, you just said it, 88% route rate. That's all we need. It should be all we need here, but it's not, man. So whether it's T-Law, Liam Cohen, Hunter himself obviously isn't completely devoid of blame, I guess. But I don't know. Every time I see the ball thrown to him, good things tend to happen. So at least we got BTJ. Next week, it's going to be the Jaguars against the Rams at Wembley Stadium in England. That's right. Another 9:30 a.m. kickoff. BTJ going to be someone that, again, we're going to continue to recommend starting firmly inside our top 24, if not even much higher. Travis Hunter, though, unfortunately, really can't do anything other than treat him as a just boomer, most likely bust, wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 at this point. Tim Patrick scored a touchdown, Dwain. Like, it's so funny to me because, again, I know people are just excited about Travis Hunter, and he's a super exciting prospect, So it's okay. I'm not trying to tell people not to be excited, but like, can you imagine what's going to happen when this dude scores a touchdown? Because right now it's like an 8-yard gain. Everyone's like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, people
like,
are going to lose their minds. Yeah, people are going to lose their minds. So.
And feel free to lose your mind. Football is fun and everything. But yeah, Travis Hunter, let's score a touchdown. He's on pace for like under 600 yards this year, man. Very, very disappointing. Yeah, yikes. So otherwise, think that, did Hunter Long have a full-time role without Brenton Strange?
66% routes with a 7% target share. So no.
Trade
He
for
was the
Mark
lead
Andrews.
guy, but no, he did not have he wasn't in the 80% range we're looking for.
And with that, we can move on to the Rams taking down the Ravens 17-3. Rams did cover as 7-point faves, the under cash here of 43.5. So this game was 3-3 at halftime. I honestly thought the Ravens might mess around and just, go ahead and pull the upset here. Stafford didn't look great, lost a fumble, took a couple sacks out there. Run game only averaged 3.2 yards per carry. And obviously Puka Nacua was dealing with an unfortunate foot injury that ended up being an ankle by the end of it. But yeah, just a couple ill-timed, turnovers from the Ravens. Couldn't get things going when they needed to at the 1 yard line. We'll talk about them more in a little bit. But hey, win is a win is a win. Good jobs for the Rams. They only had the ball, Dwain, for 22 minutes in this one. So again, I think that kind of shows the just lack of ability for the Rams to be their usual juggernaut self. But hey, maybe that is just how important Puka is to this offense. So unfortunate, again, 28 scoreless yards. We'll see what happens here. Again, per Sean McVay, he just said that he's uncertain if Nacua is going to suit up next week. It's, again, you guys don't need Dwain and I tell you just how devastating it would be to lose Puka for any large amount of time. They play Jaguars, just mentioned them, week 7 in England. After that, Dwain, they have a week 8 bye. So fingers crossed it's not too serious so we can get Puka back by week 9 at the earliest.
Yeah, look, if that's what it takes, letting him rest next week and not even, hey, maybe just let him stay home. Like, I'm good with that. If we get Puka Nacua back after 2 games, I would be feeling great. And look, I mean, the Rams, he's the engine to the entire Rams offense. I mean, we love Devontae Adams and what he's doing for them down inside the red zone, but it's really the way those two guys complement one another that has unlocked this massive upside for Stafford today, losing Puka Nacua basically before halftime. Yeah, he came back and played, guys, but he was a decoy. He wasn't targeted again the rest of the game, even though he was out there. And you kind of got excited when you saw him going over there to, I can't remember who caught the touchdown, but he was going over there to give him the high five. You're like, oh, look, there he is. There's
Higbee.
Puka. Yeah, it was Higbee. It was Higbee on the touchdown, but Stafford with 181 yards today in this game. So obviously the Puka Nacua is a massive deal. It was Whittington that had the larger role, but we did not have Tutu Atwell today. He did not play today due to, I believe it was a hamstring that he was out with.
Yeah.
But 86% route participation for Whittington, a 14% target share. You've mentioned it before, Ian. He is the guy that whenever Puka will take a few snaps off during the game, he's typically the one that comes in and plays his role. So it's hard to say for sure how they'll split things up, between him and Atwell. But my gut says Whittington would be playing more of the Puka role if we were to have a game without Puka. So for some of you DFSers or guys playing in sicko leagues, Whittington would probably be the name that I would lean to, especially if Atwell's still recovering, from a hamstring injury.
It is a hamstring injury that kept Tutu out of action here. But again, we kind of saw this last year with DeMarcus Robinson a little bit. Like even when Puka and Cooper Kupp were missing time, like it didn't actually lead to better games for DeMarcus Robinson. We saw them just, again, kind of funnel the offense elsewhere. So would be with you with Whittington. Of course, Devontae Adams is going to be, the person who we continue to be hyping up and ranking awfully high. Obviously disappointing in this one. Almost had a touchdown, guys. It was off his outstretched fingertips. I probably wouldn't call it a drop.
He got banged up too. And was playing through because Puka was out. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting. We'll have to keep an eye on the practice reports this week. 35% target share, though, but only a 44% catch rate in this game. Yeah. So a lot of targets. They weren't necessarily the chemistry wasn't there with him and Stafford.
Drew a 30-yard defensive pass interference penalty. I believe he's actually up there with Pickens on the season in terms of the highest of those overall. Yeah, Marvin Harrison Jr. actually number 1, Pickens number 2. So maybe Adams a little bit down, but yeah, again, just so close, guys, to having a much bigger season. Has only caught 3 of those 11 end zone targets on the year. Only Pickens does have more. So bigger and better days ahead. Obviously unfortunate, though, for everyone hoping for a smash spot here in this one. Only other note would be that Dwain, Blake Corum, not necessarily, doghouse. It did seem like we were back to pre-week 5 usage here in the Rams backfield.
Yep, he's the running back too, and he missed a little time in this game as well with an injury, but he had 24% of the snaps. We did not see a Jarquez Hunter sighting, so does look like Blake Corum continues to be the running back too behind Kyren Williams.
Shout out to Kyren Williams, man. He had a sweet diving catch on a big 4th down, barely stayed in bounds. I've been impressed with what he's done as a receiver, which sounds weird to say because I know that was like one of his calling cards out of Notre Dame, but we just didn't see a ton of it at the NFL level early on in his career. Last couple of weeks really has been making a lot of plays there. So, punched in the short touchdown after, going to continue to be a weekly RB1 here in Fantasyland. Over with the Ravens, Dwain, weeks 1 through 4 with Lamar Jackson, the Ravens offense ranked 5th in EPA per play. These last 2 few weeks. They rank dead ass last. Cooper Rush got benched in the fourth quarter for Snoop Huntley, who did a few things better, but also made a lot more negative plays. Derrick Henry, 122 rushing yards. He had 18 carries in the first half. I love it. I wish they would have given him 18 more in the second half. What I don't love, Dwain, is when you get to the 1 yard line and you give Mark freaking Andrews 2 tush pushes. Come on. Give it to Henry 4 straight times. What are we freaking doing out here?
I don't understand the play calling for the Ravens really all season inside the 5 yard line. Why are you paying Derrick Henry if you don't want to let him have those plays? I don't.
4 times. Does a single player on the Ravens, if they run Derrick Henry up the middle 4 straight plays, say like, oh, what was that? I wouldn't.
Yeah,
I wouldn't.
No.
So
yeah,
again, Derrick Henry still running well, man. Had over 5 yards per pop on this one. Had 5 yards per carry running in. I do think he will have bigger and better days. After their bye, we did hear from Harbaugh that we should actually have Lamar Jackson and Roquan Smith back after the bye. So hopefully we can get back to loving this Ravens offense again, Dwain, because at 1-5, man, they have some work to do. And hopefully that means big weekly point totals that unfortunately we haven't seen in a few weeks.
Yeah. Look, we just got to, I know we've said this 3 weeks in a row, I think now about this, but I think we just have to write these games off, especially the last 2 without Lamar. I don't know what to say. I think the big thing is their defense also needs to get healthy for the sake of Derrick Henry. And we've already talked about this as well. The game scripts are really getting him at this point. 48% snap share today, 47% to Justice Hill. So that's what happens when you get into these scenarios where you're trailing. And he still came through with 14 fantasy points, but it's hard for him to have his 20-point outings whenever you got to have the passing down back out there. The only other note I would add would be Isaiah Likely. Ian scored 2.6 fantasy points today, but he had a 90% route participation. Did we hear did another Raven get hurt? Andrews had 76%, so he was still out there, but I was like, because Bateman, it looked like it came from Bateman, who had a 62% route.
I don't see anything.
I didn't either. So anyway, just something to kind of file away, guys. Nothing to do with it right now. Like Ian said, they're going to be on bye, so you don't even need to pick up Likely for this week. But just, file it away in the back of your mind. Something we'll keep an eye on. That's a really big route participation. So, and Isaiah Likely was a good player last year for stretches.
So, guys, it's the NFL. I get it. Crazy stuff happens each and every week, and we can't just assume that the Ravens could be able to play with the positive game script that we want. That defense has been really bad. That said, Dwain, after their bye, Bears, Dolphins, Vikings, Browns, Jets, Bengals, Steelers, Bengals, all the way through week 15, man.
Run the table. Let's go.
Yeah. Run the table, get back. People are smart, man. Like I'm not, but sometimes they're not. We see the Yahoo trade market like stuff that goes through. If you can get Derrick Henry during his bye at a fraction of his RB1 cost,
I agree.
Go do it.
I like it. Yep, I agree.
Otherwise, I think that's going to do it for this one. More injuries, of course. Ronnie Stanley dealing with an ankle injury. They also had another linebacker get hurt. So, yeah, heal up, rest up, Ravens. Hopefully, we see a bigger and better edition of you guys in week 8 and beyond. Guys, before we get to the late afternoon slate, I did want to say, if you want a free full year of Fantasy Life Plus, well, we are offering that right now at Fantasy Life. We will not offer a better deal throughout the entire calendar year. I can guarantee you that. If you go to fantasylife.com/comment and you download the comment browser by Perplexity, again, you will get that full year of Fantasy Life Plus for free. So all of our rankings, all the utilization goodness, all that, and so much more. Again, all you have to do is download the comment browser by Perplexity at fantasylife.com/comment. Moving on to the late afternoon slate. Wish they did the BS thing when they only gave us 3 games again. I don't know if it's just like a TV rights deal or what, but just give us 4. I don't need 5. I don't need 6. I just need 4 for the love of God, not 3. Either way, the Raiders took down the Titans 20-10. The Raiders covered as 3.5-point faves. The under cash here at 41.5. So I was telling producer Nick before the show, Dwain, cool win, Gino. 2.5 yard average target depth. They've massacred my boy. I mean, that's the second lowest mark on the season, only behind that Jordan Love atrocity against the Browns. So just really, really sad, man. Not Brock Bowers. They don't really have anyone that they can confidently ask to, stretch the field, with all due respect to Trey Tucker, who is fast. He's also, not a very tall human being. So Gino hasn't been dealt the best hand, I will say, but just very, very underwhelmed what we've seen from this passing game as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, 174 yards today. Now, obviously, this is a game where they win, 20-10. So they didn't really have to force it. And it hasn't been great when they have made Geno force it. That's turned into a lot of picks and different things that they probably didn't want had to have happening today. But Michael Mayer did come through with 16 fantasy points in a PPR. Yeah. He had a 2.7 ADOT.
Just check downs. Like you would block, release, get the ball.
Yeah. The guy had, a 30% target share with 19 air yards. Like, I mean, those two numbers shouldn't really go together, but they did. And then Trey Tucker, obviously this has to happen because you just talked about the ADOT for Geno. So obviously the receivers and tight ends have to be low as well. But you look at Trey Tucker, same thing, Ian. He had a 22% target share. He had 13 air yards on the day, which was really awesome. He gave you 12 fantasy points though. So if you started him in a PPR in a pinch, he didn't kill you. And then Jacoby Myers, he was the only guy actually working downfield a tad with an 8.5 ADOT. He had 34 air yards, but only a 17% target share. All those guys played full-time roles today. So those were your main three wide receivers. I don't have anything else here on the Raiders other than Genty again was in a massive workload. 16.6 fantasy points. Didn't really look that. I expected more out of Genty, even with a bad line against the Titans, with what we've seen some other teams do against him. So a little bit of a red flag for me, but at the same time, still just in a really massive role right now. 79% of the snaps, 79% of the attempts, 76% route participation. And with Bowers out, another nice target share game at 17%.
Yeah, I mean, again, his yards after contact numbers are going to continue to be out through this world. But at some point, like there is a reason why you look at Jahmyr Gibbs and he doesn't have super big yards after contact numbers because he's fast and explosive and finds holes where he doesn't have to go ahead and take the contact in the first place. So it is one of those stats, and running back evaluation is just so hard to do independent of their offensive line and quarterback. So again, just a reminder that someone like Genty, obviously very, very good at football. We've seen him still put up some good numbers and everything, but I would not be surprised at all if, again, he gets much better at football as he continues to get experience, reading his scheme blocks and all that jazz. So still found a way to give 86 total yards and a touchdown. But to Dwayne's point, home against the Titans, you would have liked to see a little bit more here. But that's awesome that Michael Mayer did have the full-time role, Dwayne. I mean, he is someone where, look, Bowers, we're hopeful that he's going to be back after their week 8 bye, but Tom Pelissero reported that he is unlikely for week 7. I mean, we're looking at the Raiders at the Chiefs next week. Not exactly a layup, but I do think Mayer could be knocking on that tight end one door.
Yeah, I would say high-end tight end too is like kind of where we have to put him after this performance because he's also a guy that graded really high in the rookie supermodel. He's the 6th or 7th highest prospect we've seen since 2018. This guy broke some records at Notre Dame, and we've, you guys know that's like a major tight end factory. And we've had a lot of really good tight ends come out of Notre Dame. And so Michael Mayer, a lot of people wanted to ride him off. He got a little bit unlucky, man. He didn't have a great year as a rookie. We've all got used to seeing these tight ends break out as rookies. So when they don't, we immediately just want to like kind of flush them down the toilet. Then you have Brock Bowers join his team. He gets hurt. And then he probably went through like some mental health stuff, man. I would, if like I had just been a 2nd round pick and then freaking a freak like Brock Bowers lands on your team and you get hurt and you're like, geez, man, like, can I not catch a break here? So yeah, I thought it was awesome to see Mayer actually get to play. Now, look, the average depth of target has to come up. And just so you guys know, that's not his normal game. This is a guy that I'm not saying is like a deep threat, but he is a guy that can work more down the field than that. That's just the way this game played out.
Very, very complete tight end. Someone that, again, I've been trying to stash on Dynasty throughout this whole thing because, again, fully do believe in his long-term potential as a pro. So last note on the Raiders, Geno Smith, wanted to give us some fun quotes on the Raiders being 2-4, said, quote, I told coach that I need to jump into a lake or ocean or something. It's a lot of bad luck stuff happening to me, but I'm in control of that. So yes, in this rare instance, Geno, I would say take a page out of Hugh Jackson's playbook, jump into that lake. Then moving on to the Titans, 3.8 yards per play, 3 for 13 on 3rd downs. Again, Cam Ward, we saw down a stretch last week, and you can go ahead. If you just want to pull up like his 15 best throws from this year, you will see everything you need to see to believe in this dude long-term. Just not so sure that we're going to get too high of highs here in 2025. We certainly haven't so far. So took 6 more sacks, Dwayne. He is now on pace to take 71 sacks. Only David Carr and Randall Cunningham have actually taken 70 plus in a single season before. So not great, man. And now his number number one wide receiver is also hurt, Calvin Ridley, with the hamstring injury. So Alec Manor is someone that should be stepping up. But that said, Dwayne, he couldn't stop the man, the myth, the legend, Van Jefferson, from being the number one this week. So in general, I would just say a good rule of thumb is if you have a Titan player in a start-sit decision, you should probably take the other guy if at all possible.
Yeah, I think a good rule of thumb is if you have a Titan, just cut him. No. It's so sick, man. Io Manor, started off the season hot, Ian, but like he's just, and he's got a 95% route participation today. I mean, and for being a guy that was a 4th round pick for all intents and purposes for the Titans, he's a hit already. Like they've already hit on their draft pick, but he slowed down in fantasy. We just, now that we've got a larger sample on him, like the targets, they're kind of in that range of guys that we're like, yeah, you're playing, but and maybe he'll get going. Like he is a young player still. But right now, not someone we can trust. Van Jefferson, you already know. I only have one word for that, and that's fugazi. We've seen Van Jefferson long enough to know. Okonkwo and Helm are splitting, and I think really the only real news here, Ian, is that now Tony Pollard and Spears are splitting. 42% of the snaps today for Pollard, 59% for Tajay Spears, and the reason why is because the Titans were getting destroyed, which they do every week. He had 76% of the 2-minute offense snaps. Ian, do you care to guess how many snaps they were in the 2-minute offense? This is the highest number I've ever seen.
45?
No,
that's probably too high.
Oh, that's 20? Too high, but 22 in one game. They were in the 2-minute offense basically like for a whole half.
How is that defined? Is it just like no huddle?
No, but yeah, it's also defined on how many play seconds left on the play clock. So you got to be running like an up tempo. No huddle offense isn't going to do it. Cause you know how that is. You can be in no huddle and still take the play clock all the way down.
Check with me second. And all that. Okay. Yeah. That's good to know. That's good.
So yeah, when they're trying to speed up and they know they want to throw the ball, they are getting Tajay Spears on the field. He had a 12% target share today, 65% route participation. Now, a lot of that guys was pushed by the 2-minute offense. So we'll see if it sticks or not. At the same time, like I could see this team needing the 2-minute offense pretty much the rest of the season.
Titans are going to be facing the Patriots next week if Drake May keeps playing like he is capable of playing. Yeah, I think we could see a lot more 2-minute offense. Credit to Tajay Spears, though. He only had 9 touches and, got 50 yards.
He
but
looked
week
good
high,
on a couple of his carries, man.
Week high, 7 missed tackles forced, Dwayne. Even brought it up last week. Like he's one of these very rare players in the NFL still capable of reversing fields. He's got a little bit of Bucky Irving to him, okay? Again, not saying he's Bucky by any stretch of the imagination.
I like that, though.
Yeah, poor man's Bucky Irving there in Tennessee. And God forbid something happens to Tony Pollard, guys. Tajay Spears does have, again, that fantasy-friendly pass-catching ability to actually get excited about. So that's going to do it for that game. Moving on into our late afternoon slate. We had the Packers take down the Cincinnati Bengals 27-18. Cincy did cover as 15-point dogs. In this one, the over did cash just by a hair at 44.5. So maybe it wasn't the blow-up performance we were hoping for from this Jordan Love-led passing game, but I mean, still threw for 259 on only 26 attempts. That's good for a 10-yard per attempt average. Also chipped in 26 rushing yards, which we usually don't see from Jordan Love, even though he is a very capable scrambler when he feels like it. So again, had him ranked inside, the QB1 tier. But hey, when Josh Jacobs is going to do Josh Jacobs things, get those touchdowns, when they get closer to the goal line, it's going to be a little bit tougher sledding for Jordan Love. So we kind of know what he is, and we know that Josh Jacobs is an absolute beast out there. He's also been chipping in more and more in the receiving game, Dwayne. Do you think that's maybe something just with Jaden Reed out? Because we have not seen this much from Jacobs as a receiver in his short time at Green Bay.
That was the note I had written down. So yeah, like you're already on it. Receptions 5, 4, and 5 over the last 3 games. Targets of 9, 4, and 5. Target shares of 36, 11, and 19% in the last 3 games. So I think that's a pretty good theory. Because if you think about the area of the field that Jaden Reed works the most, a lot of that underneath kind of stuff. Now, he did get some vertical stuff in week 1, but historically, right, he's going to work that short to intermediate area of the field. But Tucker Kraft works that too, man. So, yeah, I think it's just – I don't know if it's a loss of confidence potentially in Dontavian Wicks. And they're running more of the 2 tight end stuff. So that's taking another potential wide receiver that you would want to target away. Not that Luke Musgrave is bad, but he's not getting a high target share. So they're doing some things with the 12 personnel. I think it's probably like multiple factors coming together. And then it just keeps working when they keep targeting him. He's been really good as a receiver as well. Now he's gotten some nice clean runways, but man, This dude has scored 31.7 and 32 fantasy points in the last 2 games. So yeah, big shout out to Josh Jacobs. And man, has always been a capable receiver out of the backfield, guys. I mean, we've talked about it so many times, but he's never been used that way. So we'll see if it continues, but there are a lot of mouths to feed in Green Bay. But right now, we'll take it while we can get it. He's running hot.
One of those mouths to feed that actually finally got some goodness going was Matthew Golden. Turned 5 targets into 3 catches for 86 yards. Also got 2 carries that he turned into 16 yards. So looked very, very good out there on his way to totaling 102 yards. Unfortunately, though, Dwayne, when you share the offense with just a proven, bona fide, elite target earner like Romeo Doubs, there's only so much you can expect.
I was prepared. Romeo Doubs had a 35% target share today. Way to go, Romeo Doubs. It's not even Ian's birthday, and I'm going to give you your roses. You had 9 targets today. And, you set at a 21% target share on the season, which, is more of a wide receiver 4, borderline wide receiver 3 territory, but you've moved the number up since the beginning of the season. So all you can do is improve from where you were, and you play one game and you go to the next game. One play, you're just stacking good plays on good plays, and that's what Romeo Doubs is doing over the last 2 weeks. Ian, he's now averaging 13.1 fantasy points per game on the year. I have a feeling we're going to have a little bit of a roller coaster, but Doubs is playing well over the last 2 games, so I can be willing to admit that. Matthew Golden, man, 13.2 fantasy points today. You mentioned it, played well, 23% targets per route run. Unfortunately, 69% route participation. I was really hoping we would see that number coming out of the bye week, like 80, 85%. We did not. They still chose to get Wicks involved just enough at 38%. Like I said, they're playing some 12 personnel. It's still mixing guys up. And we might get Christian Watson back next week. Watson was practicing this last week off the pup, so he could return in the next couple of games as well.
Yeah, I mean, again, he didn't play this one, but LaFleur was saying last week he's looked good in practice. I think he's been out there doing his stuff. Wicks actually hurt his ankle in this one. I'm not sure on the severity, but again,
okay.
You have Watson.
His routes did go down, so that's why.
Okay. You have Watson then, and Reed could be back before too long.
They're seeming like they're leaning longer on the Reed thing, but yeah, like I was a little hesitant. Like we're carrying him in several places, and I didn't add him to a bunch of other teams last week just because the news I was reading sounded like there was a wide range of potential outcomes on it.
ESPN's injury page just has estimated return date. I'm not sure how frequently they update it for guys like Jaden Reed, but it says November 2nd. So I think he's going to be eligible to return pretty soon. I would probably take, longer on November 2nd. But again, it's a good reminder, Dwayne, because I think a lot of people might see the Matthew Golden performance and some of the highlights which were good, and maybe those will lead to more opportunities. But this wasn't the classic post-bye rookie bump that maybe we were hoping for.
No, it wasn't. So look, the Packers, we like Matthew Golden. We're not telling you guys hey, we can't be excited that he scored 13.2 fantasy points today. Like, it's a step in the right direction. But it wasn't like a takeover or anything. And this is a room that's going to become more and more crowded. I'll be honest. Like, I think it's going to be tough for Golden. Like, I feel like he's kind of already had his chance. With Christian Watson out, Jaden Reed got hurt. Like, what else did you really want to go right for him? And the Packers, they've been playing well. So look, I like Matthew Golden, but it's like he's going to need things to break his way again, and they've already broken his way. So
now, can you imagine how high we would have drafted this dude if they're like, hey, by the way, Jaden Reed's going to miss the first, 2 months of the season. Yeah. Wicks isn't going to do much. Like, God.
Yeah, we would have thought he would be going off.
Absolutely. So unfortunate. We don't know S about F sometimes. Tucker Kraft did catch both of his targets for 43 yards and a touchdown. That said, fun personal anecdote. Dwayne, as you know, I am I love my $1 parlays. I have 10 years of evidence I'm not going to make money, so I like betting $1 on stuff. That's it. I had a first touchdown parlay bet for late afternoon. I had Rashad White, Michael Mayer, and Tucker Kraft, $1 to win $600. And Tucker Kraft on an offsides call dropped a touchdown. That would have freaking won it, man. So again,
made back all those dollar bets.
I know. And this is the cool thing about $1, guys. It's just $1, but when you win, you still got to be excited. I hit like a $10 parlay this weekend, and I told my wife, and she couldn't have cared less. And I was like, listen, if this $1 thing is going to work, I need you to be excited with me right now. Okay. I need this. But again,
You're like a
enough
millionaire
about.
compared to Cooter Doodle and like those 10-cent bets.
Hey, it's fun, man. Everyone, you guys know what you're doing with your money, but if you've, never tried it, it's still a fun time. And I enjoy getting those many, many sweats. But over with the Bengals,
Hey, real
Joe
quick, Ian,
Flacco,
on
man.
Tucker
Oh
on
yeah,
Tucker
sorry.
Craft, like we just have to say something here. Like if we're going to talk about, like Romeo Dobbs, earning targets and playing better, Tucker Craft now for the season has a 16% target share and a 17% targets per route run. That's not good, guys. Like he started the year really hot. He's not been good since as far as his target earning.
Yes,
Since the
that's
first
why he's
couple of
not that
games.
good. He's still a monster.
So yeah, no, he's still like you get the ball to him, like he's great. But the problem is like he's we thought he might end up being a centerpiece of the offense, and that has not happened so far. Like he's gonna move down. Like he won't move down relative to the other tight ends because there's no one to really like take his spot. But like overall,
our circle of trust though is just shrinking.
It is
happening.
And we have to lower expectations for Tucker Craft at this point. Again, guys, not taking away anything from what Tucker Craft does on the football field as far as when he gets the ball in his hands, when they give him his opportunities. But like we've got 5 games worth of data now for the Packers and a 17% targets per route run historically. Like that's not even a top 12 tight end. I'm not saying that Tucker Craft is not one, but come on, like we need more.
It really is Tyler Warren, Trey McBride, and please, for the love of God, get healthy Brock Bowers and everyone else right now. So again, Tucker Craft could very well still be ranked right after those guys, but it is a fair point, man. Like again, just how many straight games now without even more than 5 targets? It has in fact been 3 of them.
And
so
this was his issue last year.
5.
So I mean, we've also got a whole nother year where this happened. And
I think the Jacob stuff is probably it, man. Like you said,
it is.
He's getting those targets.
And we see that a lot, the trade-off between running backs and tight ends with low ADOTs. And so, yeah. And guys, we're going to get good games from Tucker Craft. We're not telling you to bench him. We're just saying, hey, like it's where we thought we were headed after 2 or 3 games. It doesn't appear that we're pointed in that same direction over the course of the season.
And it's a good point because I saw him make a cool sliding catch down the seam, and then he freaking busted that touchdown where, again, he looked like the yak beast he's been for basically his entire career. But yeah, just 2 targets, guys. So again, would be a lot cooler if they focused in on one player. But man, Matt LaFleur even said after the game, like, don't basically expect that. They haven't needed to. And to his credit, yeah, the Packers have been pretty freaking good the whole time he's been in charge. So going to be Green Bay at the Cardinals next week. Hopefully they can continue to make the most out of their opportunities. Over with the Bengals, rough first half, man. Like Joe Flacco and company could not move the ball, but they got things going there down the stretch. And it was a situation, man, where, yeah, I don't think the game was ever in too much of a doubt, but it was 10-7, in the third quarter. The Packers went right back up 2 scores. But again, this wasn't just complete like Justin Fields down, 24 points level garbage time here. So Flacco, 219 yards and a pair of scores on 29 of 45 passing. One to Jamar Chase on an absolutely sick catch he made back shoulder with the defender all over him. Hit the gritty right after a Packers defender had the audacity to gritty on Jamar Chase. So, don't be gritting against, the grittier, Dwain. That's a good lesson for everyone there. Also, nice touchdown from Flacco. And I got another 4th down to Tanner Hudson over the middle. So I was pleasantly surprised, I was happy with what I saw from Joe Flacco out here, Dwain, okay? Because, again, I thought this was the best he's looked all season compared to what we saw in Cleveland. This is still a tough Packers defense. I know what Dak Prescott did to him, but still a group that maybe even if they're not the elite world beaters we thought they might be the first couple of weeks, still anyone's idea of a very good defense. And, man, it's about to lighten up a lot for the Bengals schedule-wise because, again, that was the one thing we could say for Jake Browning. After that Joe Burrow injury, they've had to face the Vikings, Broncos, Lions, now the Packers. They get the Steelers, Jets, and the Bears all at home over these next 3 weeks. So I'm feeling a lot better now than I was even a couple of days ago about the upside of pretty much everyone involved in this passing game, Dwayne.
Well, look, I mean, it wasn't great. He averaged 4.9 yards per attempt, but it was his first game. He just signed with the team. I mean, so to see him actually, whatever happened at halftime, the adjustments they made, he actually did like look better in the second half of the game than he did in the first half. So I think that's the positive thing we have to say. And obviously, like Jake Browning was so bad, we're just thankful to have anything else. And so we'll take it. Zoe, she named her fantasy team the Gritty Kings, Ian, because she has Jamar Chase, and she's been pretty sad, since the Joe Burrow injury. So she was happy today with her 20.1 PPR points from Mr. Jamar Chase, who had a 30% target share, 12 targets today for Jamar. So, and man, T. Higgins, 8 targets. T. Higgins gave you 11.2 fantasy points. You never thought you'd be excited about that, guys, did you? Well, you are. You're thankful that you got something from T. Higgins. And to your point, Ian, schedule gets better. You get more time with Flacco. Hopefully, man, if Flacco could get to like 240, 250 per game, like passing, we could support Chase and Higgins with that. We could be good enough.
And I think we can get there. I mean, the last drive of the game was just like, quick check downs to Noah Fant, Samaje Perine. Flacco, when he had 40 pass attempts, 20 of them had gone to Chase and Higgins. I think he understands the assignment, Dwain. This defense for Cincy, already a joke. Honestly, they've been playing better than I thought they would over these last 2 weeks. Like I was talking about that with the Lions game, how pathetic it was. Your defense was finally getting stops, and then Browning kept turning it over. But dude, Trey Hendrickson hurt his back. If Trey Hendrickson's going to be out now, man, this really could be a situation where an already bad defense is even worse. T. Higgins and Jamar Chase doing their thing. So I will say Higgins, had a catch, got checked for concussion where he got tackled at the 1 yard line, didn't score. So, hey, again, people are going to look at this and not see this huge, breakout game. So if T. Higgins is someone you could be buying a little bit low on still, Dwain, I think I'd be down for that.
Yeah, I'm down for it. Sorry, don't know what happened. My computer got so excited about Joe Flacco. Yeah, it just freaked out for a second. So, but we're back. Yeah, no, I think this is, again, I don't want to get crazy about Flacco, but to your point, I think Higgins is the one that you can actually buy. I think Chase, obviously, if the Chase managers held on this long and they got the 20 points out of him this weekend, you're not going to be able to pry him away. But the Higgins manager, dude, I benched Higgins in some leagues this week. Yeah. So that kind of, I think that's enough. And we were ranking him as a borderline wide receiver 3. So yeah, I like the idea around, Higgins is the target that you could potentially get.
Again, I don't think he's going to reach preseason, wide receiver 12 heights or anything like that, but we don't need him to at the price he's at.
He could turn back into a low end wide receiver 2. And if you're getting to buy him as a wide receiver 3 or low end wide receiver 3, there's room to profit there. Don't overpay guys, but there's a decent range of outcomes on Higgins if Flacco can play okay.
Dwain, did we also see an escalated 2-minute rate in this game? Because Samaje Perine, once again, man, really eating into Chase Brown's work.
Actually, yeah, I gotta look at that because I was wondering because Samaje Perine played 83% of the 2-minute offense. So I'm gonna go over here and I'm gonna click on Samaje Perine, 85% of the 2-minute offense. Yeah, 11 plays. So not quite the 22, but we had 11 plays in the 2-minute offense, and we did have Samaje Perine. What's interesting is Samaje Perine had a 34% route participation versus 48% for Chase Brown. So essentially, probably all of his passing snaps came from the 2-minute offense. But what's interesting here, Ian, is things are thawing on Chase Brown, not just in the pass game. Today, Samaje Perine had 38% of the carries. Now, I don't know how many you can have a carry in the 2-minute offense. You wouldn't think it would be a lot, though. You're typically you want to try to stop the clock on the 2-minute offense, not drain it. That's not your real plan. But a carry or two could have been in the 2-minute offense. He had 6 design rushing attempts today versus 9 for Jamar Chase. But that's 2 games in a row where we've now seen Perine actually creeping into things beyond just okay, he's going to play the pass downs. It's cool. Chase Brown still has everything else. No, he doesn't. Chase Brown now at a 53% snap share in this game with a 56% attempt share. So Brown not only has been playing bad, actually this is his best game, 4.7 yards per carry today, but he gave you 8.9 fantasy points. So yeah, look, it's not good for Chase Brown. Chase Brown's in kind of a gross spot. It's kind of like the rest of the Bengals. We have to hope that Flacco turns things around and maybe somehow he gets back in the good graces. But right now, he's not in the same role that he was in, that we were able to at least tout for the first 3 games. That's gone.
He's got a new rushing long, Dwain. 13.
Oh,
13 yards. Wow. Walking big play down there in Cincinnati. We'll see what happens. Again, optimistic for the rest of the offense. I'd be a hypocrite if I didn't think that could be good for Chase Brown. But again, when he's not making anything of it, now it's Pirine. How many more games can they go without giving Taj Brooks even a look out there? There's still a trade deadline as well. Don't love this. So Bengals going to be facing the Steelers on Thursday Night Football. Dwayne, they also might not have Mike Gesicki. Got ruled out with a pec.
Yeah.
Noah Fant, low key, kind of has some ridiculous advanced, per route metrics this year. Was he getting the full-time role or was Tanner Hudson splitting it?
No, it was Fant leading, but they split it between 4 guys a lot of the games. Today it was 3, but they've also got Marcus Camby, who I don't think was active today. But Noah Fant had 50% route participation with a 10% target share. Hudson caught the touchdown that everybody saw, but yes, he was playing behind Fant with a 36% route participation. So kind of a gross 3-way committee, sometimes a 4-way committee. And that's something that really the Bengals have shown us now for 2 years with the same coaching staff. So I just don't know that we can even Gesicki, when he's playing, never gets to 60% of the routes. So it's probably nothing.
Lesson for me, particularly when you don't have a coaching change. I actually helped out Juwan Johnson. Kellen Moore came in and gave him a full-time role. Just because guys like Mike Gesicki and Evan Ingram get money, do not assume that we're going to see a coaching staff that regularly rotates tight ends all of a sudden focus in on one of them. So again, maybe all you smarty pants out there already knew that, but I will hopefully not lose as much money on guys like Mike Gesicki in the future. But let's face it, that's probably not going to happen. Moving on, Dwayne, the Buccaneers beat the 49ers 30-19. Tampa covered as 3.5-point faves. The over cashed here at 46.5. Baker freaking Mayfield, man. They were chanting MVP, and I was standing up in my living room chanting along with them, man. 256 yards, 2 touchdowns on just 17 of 23 passing. This man was born a gunslinger and still doing it out there. Also had he's had so many great scrambles over these last 2 years, but I don't think anywhere better than today, Dwayne. 3rd and 14 out there. Somehow finds his way to get 15 big ones. Had the freaking eyes in the back of his head to know where the first down marker was. And then the next freaking play, I believe he hits 5'2" Tez Johnson 50 yards downfield on an absolute laser. First career touchdown for the Oregon rookie, who also hit a cool back handspring for his troubles. So can't say enough great things about Baker Mayfield, but man, he's going to have to continue playing with one hand tied behind his back. Mike Evans is still out with the hamstring. Chris Godwin being out with the fibula issue. I don't know if he's going to be playing again this year. Just haven't heard that. Don't know. It's certainly not good. And now they took freaking Emeka Egbuka from us, Dwayne. Hamstring injury. I think Mike Florio was saying at halftime that's not considered too serious, but they said that about Mike Evans too. And
serious enough he couldn't play.
It's
yeah. Look, Egbuka playing out of his mind. You guys all know that. Had Matt Harmon on Talk Data to me, and he went super deep into some of the cool stuff Egbuka's doing. So if you want to go back and check it out, you can. We all love Matt Harmon. But yeah, Tez Johnson, 84% route participation. Come on down. Like, you're the next guy in line for Baker Mayfield to throw the ball to, man. Scored 11.5 fantasy points today with a 13% target share. Then you had Cade Otton with a 96% route participation. He's probably the most interesting one to us, Ian, because we did see last year Baker just like missile lock on this guy for about a 3-week stretch whenever he didn't have Godwin and he didn't have Evans, or he had some combination of those guys missing. He had a 26% target share to get 26% target share today, gave you 10.1 PPR points. And then Sterling Shepard, he had an 80% route participation with a 13% target share. So yeah, man, it's amazing how banged up this offense is. No Bucky Irving, no Mike Evans, no Chris Godwin, no Emeka Egbuka, and then we can go back even to the preseason, and you lost McMillan, and so literally everything that can go wrong has gone wrong. And Baker Mayfield throws for 256, 11.1 yards per attempt in this game with basically nothing. So I think the bet, what we're hoping for here is he gets one of those weapons back next week. I know they said with Mike Evans, at this time last week, they were pretty sure he wouldn't play the next week, but I haven't seen comments like that, after this game. So, man, if we could get either Egbuka or Mike Evans back, we could be pretty excited about it. And man, wouldn't it be amazing to have both at some point?
Bucky Irving too, come on down. It does sound like Bucky, dealing with everything he's got going on, will probably be out at least one more week. You'd like to think Evans could be back because they probably would have placed him on IR if they thought he was going to be missing these 4 games.
They don't seem to care about that. but
They don't seem to care. It's the Buccaneers, and he also didn't practice even a little bit last week. So we'll see what happens. Certainly, again, going to be the topic of many of our DraftKings opening lines here throughout the week here on the Fantasy Life Show. So Sterling Shepard making some plays. Cameron Johnson with a K had a touchdown as well. Dwayne, would it be? I feel like Shepard would be the top priority option if we're living in a world where there's no Ibuka, Evans, or Godwin. Again, we have all week to sort it out. But I hear you, Kate Otten getting the jump, but just with the wide receivers,
I would go Tez.
Really?
I don't know. Like, I just feel like he has more juice, but at the same time, like, I acknowledge Tez Johnson. Like, we talk about trying not to overly worry about size. Like, he's like a gnat. I mean, he's like a Tutu Atwell, really. Yeah. I mean, similar size to that. So I don't know how much he can hold up to like a significant workload, but my thought process on these guys is I don't think any of them at this point in their careers are really high-end target earners. We have seen Otten, like, so setting him aside, looking at the receivers, like obviously Otten can have some games where he can give you the targets. So I'm kind of leaning into like which one can give me the big play. And I feel like that's probably Tez. So I think they're probably going to be pretty close in targets. Probably going to be like 15 to 17% is what you're hoping for between Tez and Shepard. I just feel like they're going to have similar routes, but Tez can give me the big play. He's just got more juice. So I could be wrong. They're probably going to end up pretty close, but I lean to Tez.
And Tez, honestly, I know this was his first touchdown, but in that Jets comeback, like he had a nice little route, got open for a potential 60-yarder, and Baker rare misfire. So again, I know he's only had a handful of catches this year. Certainly was, a nice player at Oregon. He, ran a 4.51 instead of a 4.49. So everyone kind of lost their, agenda for him throughout the offseason. But yeah, Tez Johnson, great game. I think he says he weighs 142 pounds. Baker said afterwards, if, he could backflip like that too, he still weighed what he did in middle school. So great stuff from the 4-2 Buccaneers. They are going to be, the 5-1 Buccaneers, excuse me. They are traveling to Detroit to take on the Lions on another Monday Night Football doubleheader next week, but they're doing the dick move where one of those starts at 10 p.m. Only other note would be Rachaad White continuing to take over this backfield. 20 touches, wound up racking up 86 total yards and a short score, 78% of the snaps. Saw a little bit more of Sean Tucker, Dwayne, but not enough to, really be worried about White as a weekly upside RB2 at worst.
No, yeah, we're good. We can move forward. Rachaad White's the running back one. Sean Tucker is the backup running back to him. That's the role he's playing. We talked about it before. He's in that range of 20 to 30% of the snaps, but it's Rachaad White.
49ers continuing to lead the NFL in passing yards, and that will not be changing after Mac Jones threw for 347 out there. Did throw a pair of picks, but man, just kind of first one looked like a little bit of potential miscommunication. I think he thought Kendrick Bourne was going to go out, and he ended up sitting. And then later on a 4th and 5, I mean, what are you going to do out there? Overall, though, man, just cannot say how impressed I have been with Mac Jones making the most out of a situation where, yeah, Kendrick Bourne's going for 100 yards in back-to-back games. Dave Tunges is going out there and again having a good little game for himself. So he's got McCaffrey and he's got Kyle Shanahan. I get it, guys. But hey, Mac Jones certainly proven to be someone who's going to be on the NFL roster for a long time. I think the big story here, Dwayne, as great as it is talking about Christian McCaffrey's weekly 20-plus touches, 100-plus yards, and a touchdown, is just the state of the wide receiver room. We have no idea when Brandon Ayuk is going to be back. It sounds like Ricky Pearsall could have a chance. Schefter specifically said he may be able to return in week 7. Brock Purdy apparently has a chance in week 7 as well. So a lot of moving parts. But the big news afterwards was that Jawan Jennings said he is playing with 5 broken ribs along with a high and low ankle sprain. So never won to question this dude's toughness. Did we see a reduced role at least with this, Dwayne?
I mean, 79% of the routes, with 5 broken ribs and a high and a low ankle sprain, like that's like 120% route participation. So yeah, man, 1.7 PPR points. Obviously, it's definitely impacting him in his play.
Kendrick Bourne.
Yeah. Kendrick Bourne, man, 19.2 fantasy points and just continues to show chemistry with Mac Jones. 85% route participation, 24% target share, a 15.2 ADOT. Dude had 137 air yards today. Kendrick Bourne, like, just hat tip to you, man. Just the random 49er wide receiver of the season, like, just coming out of nowhere. Like you mentioned, they're going to be getting more healthy. Don't know how much longer that'll last, but if we get more games where we know Jennings is on the mend and we're not fully back, like, the Freeman warm blanket continues to carry on with Kendrick Bourne.
talking on the start sit hour this morning with Chris Allen. We were team Kendrick Bourne over Juwan Jennings. And one of the reasons, Dwayne, was because I was just like, Bourne more or less is playing like what Ricky Pearsall was doing for them. So if we do get Pearsall back, that is going to complicate things. But I'll tell you what, man, unfortunately, like I know Jennings has had some real nice stretches here over the past 2 seasons, but I got to kind of see it again, particularly with all these injuries going on, before I can trust him. For me, Bourne becomes the clear, wide receiver 1 in this offense, maybe even a wide receiver, low end, borderline wide receiver 2 in fantasy land. At this point, Juwan Jennings, going to more so be buried in that wide receiver 4-5 range. Are you with me?
Yeah, I think the challenge is like when we get Ricky Pearsall back, I'll kind of want to see I want to see what they do. Like, because it'll probably be a rotation of Bourne and Jennings. Then neither one is probably in a full-time role, and it might be Bourne a little bit more in the lead while he's healthy. But yeah, if we get another game without Pearsall, I don't see how we don't just call Kendrick Bourne the one right now on their team. So I would probably struggle to get him into the wide receiver 2 conversation. Maybe that's wrong. Maybe I'm holding his career against him. Cause I did that last year with Jennings probably too long. You could argue I did that too long with him as well. And maybe he's just really a baller and he's great in this system. But I think to say that he's a guy that they signed off the street to be in the wide receiver 3 conversation is already like, kind of giving him a pretty big hat tip, like from us.
Yeah. And of course, the other guy that's coming back, hopefully next week, whether we're not positive, George Kittle from that hamstring injury. Remember that guy that used a top 4 round pick on? Well, maybe George Kittle could be here to save the day. And
George Kittle in a pass first 49ers offense.
Please.
With everyone else hurt. Like, come on.
Kittle, Brock Bowers, second half. It's all setting up for you guys. So hopefully, again, these guys get healthy. Unfortunately, Fred Warner will not be getting healthier. He has a broken and dislocated ankle, out for the season. So, man, it happened in the middle of the game, but I'll tell you what, that 49ers defense looked absolutely lost out there, Dwayne. It's a situation where the 49ers start looking a lot like the Cowboys, with those unfortunate injuries. So they're 4-2. Their season's hardly, over or anything like that. But again, just sucks to see no Nick Bosa, no Fred Warner. Man, they are playing with, pretty much two hands tied behind their back now on defense. Guys, we have reached the last game. It is actually time for the Xfinity Game of the Week, brought to you by Xfinity. Imagine all your football all in one place. Easy, Xfinity. Imagine that. The Chiefs took down the Detroit Lions 30-17. Kansas City covered with ease as 2.5-point home favorites. The under did cash though at 51.5. Due mostly, I would say, some not unlucky, just some fourth down shenanigans from the Lions that didn't exactly go their way. So with the Chiefs, another great game from Patrick Mahomes. It helps when your opponent is down. I believe it was 5 of their top 6 cornerbacks that they had entering the season. But hey, Patrick Mahomes still doing his thing. 257 and 3 touchdowns through the air, and also kept doing his thing on the ground. Another 31 rushing yards and a short goal line touchdown. So Mahomes putting up bonkers numbers, Dwayne, and this is before he actually gets wide receiver 1 Rashee Rice back. Our long national crisis is over. Rice will be back in week 7. So with that in mind, again, Mahomes is looking good. The offense, honestly, over these past couple of weeks has caught their stride. What are your expectations for this wide receiver room moving forward?
I think Rashee Rice is the wide receiver 1 on the team. Xavier Worthy will be the wide receiver 2. Travis Kelce will be the number 3 target. And then I think all the rest of the guys are just rotating for scraps. Just depends on what they need. If they want to stretch the field, it'll be Tyquan Thornton out there. If they want another guy to help kind of patrol the middle of the field, probably be some snaps for Juju Smith-Schuster. But I think they're going to pretty much center it around those 3 players. That's what I would do. And I think those are their 3 bet. This was the best game of the season for Travis Kelce, from a target share standpoint. He gave you 13.8 fantasy points today. Xavier Worthy, I think you and I were hoping for more. In that first game back in week 4, gave us 17.1 fantasy points, gave us 11.1 last weekend, and then today 10.6. His route participations have been 71, 80, and 76. So I don't know that Rashee Rice coming back helps those, but my gut says he's still going to stay in that range just because they do so many things with him. They use him in the run game. They get him in motion a lot, and they build other parts of their offense off of the defense having to worry about Worthy. So I think his role probably stays the same, but it's at least worth noting. It's not like he's got this huge cushion and route participation. Obviously, Hollywood Brown is like the interesting one. I know he caught the 2 touchdowns tonight. One of them, essentially was wide open. Kind of the opposite, like of what we talked about with Darren Waller. Everyone went to the back line and he went to the front line and caught the touchdown. But I feel like Hollywood gets squeezed, Ian. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like Hollywood's going to be the one that's going to get squeezed the most out of all the guys we named.
Definitely not going to be able to start him with confidence, at least in this first week back. Again, Rashee Rice, you guys didn't keep him on your bench for 6 weeks to do anything other than start this dude. He's going to be, again, instantly inside our top 15 to 20 at the lowest, I could say. Just trying to say maybe they ease him in. He could very well be sitting back up as a wide receiver 1 in week 8. Worthy, again, someone who I'm going to, I think, still give the benefit of the doubt as a lower end wide receiver 2. But I'm with you, Dwain. In my defense, that was at like peak Jake Browning. What the hell are you doing on a football field? But after that first game, I was thinking Worthy could go out there and just put up some bonkers numbers while, Rashee Rice was out. Even better than I think Jamar Chase, as my idiotic brain said, like at 1:30 a.m. back on that Sunday night. So Xavier Worthy, again, would have been a lot cooler with more, but did find the end zone. This one still does look fast. Hopefully, again, we're not going to see that, ankle and shoulder injury really hinder him for too much longer. Same old from the backfield, Dwain. Everyone wants Brashard Smith to be a thing, but he's just a gadget.
Yeah. I will say there was a difference, though. The fantasy points still sucked. 6.1 for Pacheco and 4.4 for Kareem Hunt. But if you guys were watching this game, I was like, man, we're seeing a lot of Pacheco tonight.
Yeah.
77% snap share in this game for Pacheco versus 29% for Kareem Hunt. 60% of the design rushing attempts went through Pacheco and only 30% for Hunt. So not ready to declare it as a thing, but that's definitely the biggest split we've seen all season. 74% route participation for Hunt, for Pacheco versus only 21% for Kareem Hunt. So don't want to overreact, but it's something. If we see that again, we would start to feel better about, Isaiah Pacheco. Be nice to see him turn that into fantasy points. We'd be even more excited about that. But worth noting that it was the biggest split we've seen.
And I will say on the Mahomes, kind of wasn't a read option, it was a speed option touchdown run. That was Pacheco that was on the field with them. So hopefully we can actually see Pacheco get a couple of those goal line carries. Obviously that has been Kareem Hunt's wheelhouse so far. So great note there. Over for the Lions, seemed like pretty much business as usual. Again, I mentioned some of the unproductive fourth downs. David Montgomery almost had his second touchdown pass. He hit Jared Goff, but they got called for an illegal motion. Jahmyr Gibbs got stopped in the one before that. Nice touchdown from Jameson Williams. As we mentioned, Dwayne, the second that we put him on our fantasy bench, he went ahead and had himself a nice game. And also a pretty sick touchdown from Sam Laporta. I just caught myself, not that Laporta's had a nice couple weeks here back to back and everything, but it is funny watching these Lions games, where you're like, oh, Monroe St. Brown, incredible. Oh, Jahmyr Gibbs, he's so fast. Jameson Williams, they should get him going. And then it's like, oh yeah, Sam Laporta has averaged the 5th most receiving yards by a tight end through their first 2 seasons in NFL history. That's not a bad complimentary piece that you can, hang your hat on from time to time. But basically business as usual here, Dwayne. Just unfortunately they didn't score more points.
Yeah. Nope, you got it. I mean, JMO, we got him to the fantasy bench. He scores 18.6 fantasy points. And we said that's the way it works. And that we just needed to go through it. Hopefully you guys didn't bench him. You just let me and Ian bench him for you. And then you guys actually got to partake in the fruits of that bad decision by us. So that now JMO scored the point. So, but 26% target share for JMO too. So it wasn't like it was just, deep stuff. Average depth of target was only 4.9 in this game. 43% of his targets came on screens. They put him in the slot. They put him in motion. It's 2 of his targets came on RPOs. They were trying to get things going for JMO. Actually, probably my guess is one of those RPO plays was the rushing attempt that he had. Yeah. The 15-yard run, and one of them was a target to him, which was for 1 yard. So. Yeah, good role for JMO tonight. Hopefully this gets him going.
Was the RB usage a little more like weeks 1 through 4? Because Montgomery did make the most out of his opportunities, but it was, pretty heavily favored to Gibbs.
Big time. 77% of the design rushing attempts went to David Montgomery in this game.
Gibbs.
And to Gibbs in this game. 18% to David Montgomery, 70% snap share to Gibbs, and only 30% to Monty. So in the games where the Lions, which is kind of rare, this doesn't happen to them that often, but we have seen Montgomery, I think twice now, basically get game scripted out. And that's what he still gave you. He actually he outscored Jahmyr Gibbs in this game with 8.1 fantasy points, but it's not the kind of thing that you obviously want to hang your hat on. We're going to feel a lot better about Jahmyr Gibbs in most of the games that work out in this fashion.
And going to probably feel better about Gibbs next week. They are facing Vita Vea and the Buccaneers on Monday Night Football. Meanwhile, the Chiefs are going to be facing off against the Raiders. Again, guys, this has been our Xfinity Game of the Week brought to you by Xfinity. Imagine all your football all in one place. Easy, Xfinity. Imagine that. And Dwayne, we're going to be imagining, I don't know, all the fantasy things we messed up today. We're going to bed. This is going to wrap it up for the Fantasy Life Show, but we appreciate you guys hanging out with us. As always, make sure you check out Dwayne's utilization report, which will be live and very much free on FantasyLife.com on Monday. I'll also have my way too early Week 7 rankings up there before too long. So as always, if you like the show, then like the show. And otherwise, just have a great rest of your week. For Dwayne, for producer Mick, I'm Ian. Thanks again for tuning in. And until next time, take care, everybody.